call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. I want to acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, and in the land in which we are meeting is the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. As a council and a municipality, we will continue to work on moving forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. Could I ask for a motion for the adoption of the minutes, please?
Resolve that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on July 8th, 2024, and the special meeting of council held on July 25th, 2024, both held at Prairie Fusion Arts and Entertainment, be adopted as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Nichols, seconded by Councillor Meyer. All those in favor? And that is carried. We have no delegations this evening. We will move into our public hearings. Before we have a number of public hearings tonight, and I just want to start by just making some comments about public hearings and remembering that we want to make sure that we're following the rules of a public hearing and making sure that we're remaining respectful and making sure that we are only commenting and discussing the task at hand or what's happening right at hand before we start. Okay, so we'll move into public hearing. I'll open public hearing for second and third reading of bylaw 24-8765, zoning amendment PC 24-24, Meadowland Homes. I'll ask if there is anyone here to speak in favor of the application. Sure, and if you want to come all the way up to the front to this, if you just want to come stand here and state your name for the record once you get way up here to this podium.
I'm Jim Keating, owner of Meadowland Homes.
Jim, can you see a green light there in front of you?
No.
Okay, well, sorry.
There it is. Jim Keating, the owner of Meadowland Homes.
Great, and then if you just want to stay there in case, if you don't have any,
Sure.
if anybody has any questions that we can ask of you, okay? I'll ask if anyone else is here to speak in favor? No? Anyone to speak against this application? Again, anyone to speak against this application? Anyone have any questions about this application? Council, do we have any questions for Mr. Keaveney before we proceed? You're off the hook, thank you. Okay. I will ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship, and be it resolved, and I so move that the public hearing for bylaw 24-8765, zoning amendment PC 2424 Meadowland Homes Limited, 423, 429, 433 2nd Street Northwest now be closed.
Thank you. That's moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. Any question, or no, go ahead, Councillor, no, sorry, give me a second. All those in favor, and that is carried. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. And Council, what the issue at hand is to proceed with the second and third reading. And in front of you, you'll see the report to Council. You'll also see the zoning amendment bylaw Schedule A, the sketch of the possible, or the sketch of the locations, and a copy of the zoning amendment bylaw if it passes. So this one was originally, the issue was to rezone the property from R1 residential single family zone to an R2 residential two family home. First reading came on June the 10th, 2024 to start the actual process with the planning district and the zoning bylaw amendment number 24-8765. So second reading can go ahead with a couple of different options. We've met those options and there's been no objections. I won't get back into the development plan. It does fit within the confines of the development plan at this point in time. The application since the first reading had been advertised in the Daily Graphic for 2 consecutive weeks. It has been circulated to the province, and public notices have been sent to all owners of property within a 100-meter radius of the proposed development as per Section 168 of the Planning Act. As you can see, there's been no written objections. There's been no other objections. The documents were circulated to provincial departments and agencies with no objections. Provincial Planning does recommend approval of a zoning bylaw amendment number 24-8765. So with that said, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the application to rezone the land as 423, 429, 433 2nd Street Northwest, and legally described as the northerly 22 feet of lots 577, 578, 579, 580, 581, Plan 66 PLTO in the parish of Portage la Prairie, from R1 residential single-family zone to R2 residential two-family zone, and that bylaw number 24-8765 be read a second time.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. Any questions or comments from council? All those in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Meyer?
And that bylaw number 24-8765 be read a third time, finally passed, signed, and sealed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Nichols. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, we will open up public hearing request for conditional use PC 27-24. Nichols at 124 Lorne Avenue East. I will ask if there is anyone here to speak in favor of the application. Again, I'll ask if anyone's here to speak in favor of the application. I'll ask if anyone is here to speak against the application. If you want to come up to the front here. Just need to turn the mic. Oh, great. Perfect. Okay, if you could state your name for the record, please.
Yeah, it's Patricia Bergen. I live next door at 130 Lorne East.
Patricia, did you want to make a statement or did you want to answer questions?
I still don't quite know what they plan on doing there. I thought Mr. Nichols might approach me on it, but basically it's a privacy issue. That's kind of it. Other than that, I don't know if they can kind of re-fence it. Just kind of, it's in close proximity of the house. It was meant for a single dwelling place. Now they have use of the suite downstairs and upstairs. And I know last time it was presented as a mother-in-law suite. I was just under the assumption that was for their mother-in-law. But I think it's for one of the residents that live there.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, if they plan on putting windows in, excuse me, the windows in on the east side, well, that's not far from a good neighbor fence, which you can see through anyway. Yeah, I don't know what they all plan on doing with it. So,
Okay.
and just the traffic getting to it. Basically, it's kind of like just a driveway leading up to it. There's probably only about a foot off the driveway, which would go onto my lawn. I mean, I cut the grass in that right beside it and basically take care of it. But yeah, it's kind of like it'd be tunneling in, I would think. Parking would be an issue. I know I have to park on the street because I don't have a driveway. But yeah, I just don't know much about it.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for? No? Oh. Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Worship. Just a question. Have you spoken at all? I think you mentioned it, but Mr. Nichols, you have had no conversation about this
No,
project?
no. The Hydro went out a few weeks ago, out in their place for a while, and he was there, and I thought that was a perfect opportunity to ask him, but the tenants and that were outside, and I thought he might have said, would have said, hey, can we talk? But nothing. No. So,
Thank you. Councillor Doyle?
To the best of your knowledge, does the applicant live in the house?
no. No. There's people renting upstairs and people renting downstairs. And then they have this big old garage that no vehicles are ever in there. Yeah, how would where would the water come from? Would they have to go through the back or come through the front?
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, Councillor Porter?
Just a question, have you ever had any communication with the owner?
Yeah, I've, not often. Like when he first got the place, no, I was watching it. I had maybe the owners, the people that lived there, they passed away. Her niece was looking after it. They asked if I'd park my vehicle there. It ended up getting a flat, so it was there for more than the winter anyway. But yeah, we talked, half a dozen times or so. Yeah, you don't see much of them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
That's it?
That's it. That's it. Perfect. I'll ask if anyone else is here to speak against the application. Council okay to close?
Good.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Your Worship. Be it resolved, and I so move, that the public hearing for conditional use PC 2724 Nichols at 124 Lauren Avenue now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, second by Councillor Nichols. All those in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. And Council, in front of you, you'll have the report to Council for PC 27-24. You'll also see the site plan and a sketch of the location as well. So the owner is applying for a conditional use to convert an existing detached garage into a secondary suite in an R1 residential single-family zone. Now, my understanding that this had come to council previously and has been tabled to today, I guess in hopes of getting further information. Has that happened?
I can say is that my hope was that the applicant would be here to answer questions, but that is not the case.
Okay, I'll carry on. We can get back to that in just a second. So the background, so we can deal with it tonight, is that Tim and Jennifer Jones have applied to allow for conditional
Sorry,
use.
excuse me, Nichols.
If I say Jones, I'm sorry, I got curling in my head in the middle of summer. Timothy and Jennifer Nichols, excuse me, have applied to allow for a conditional use to convert an existing detached, plus new glasses, detached garage into secondary suite in an R1 residential single-family zone. The secondary suite to have obviously the things it needs for egress, fire, safety codes, and so on. The application was circulated to various city departments. There were no concerns to note, and a site plan is attached addressing a concern of the placement of the garage to identify potential issues that may arise. Public notices have been sent to all property owners within 100-meter radius, and we just noted the one objection now. With that said, it's the administrative recommendation, and I so move that the council of the city of Portage la Prairie approve the conditional use application of Timothy and Jennifer Nichols to convert an existing detached garage into a secondary suite into an R1 residential single-family zone, with the condition that any future change in ownership of conditional use for a secondary suite be reapplied for at the property 124 Lauren Avenue East, which is legally described as lots 7-8 and 15-16, Plan 24, Parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. Any questions or Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to take the opportunity as Chair of Planning and Economic to address it first. I just want to note that back in 2019, the City of Portage la Prairie did pass a bylaw, bylaw number 1986-96. That was the first time that we forayed into a secondary suite bylaw. And it's very explicit in its wording and very explicit in its writing. Since then, there haven't been a lot of these that have come across our table, but I do want to point out specifically with this one that the intent of the secondary suite bylaw was to create more density, extra capacity, specifically if you're on a house and you've got maybe a relative or a mother or a son or something being able to live with you. Sometimes we can maybe use these to bypass it to get into a extra rental property. I want to be careful in saying that, but which is not the intent of the bylaw to begin with. This situation here, the principal dwelling needs to be owner occupied. And my understanding, if I'm correct, and I wish the principals were here, is that it's not principal occupied. With that said, I cannot support the motion on the face of what it is and really don't intend to go any further with it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Doyle?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to second what Councillor Meyer had said there. You took the words out of my mouth. It says right here on our zoning amendment for secondary suites that the principal dwelling must be owner occupied in order to have a secondary suite on the property. So as far as we know, we can't confirm or whether or not the owner actually lives on the property, because for a second time in a row they have not attended the meeting. So I will also not support this application.
Can I just check with administration if we have any more information on this applicant as to what their intentions are?
I'd ask Mr. Gessel to speak to that.
Basically, at this point, I had a conversation based on the application being deferred to this date. I did get a hold of Mr. Nichols, had a conversation, and it did turn out that he did have renters in the home. He was not physically living in the home, which was different from what we understood when the application first came through. With that, though, he said that the renters were to be moving out of the home, and him and his family were moving into the home. And that was the reason for the application, was to bring an elderly family member in to have a secondary suite to move them into the garage and care for them. At this time, I can't speak to is he in there or is he not in the home. I couldn't tell you. It's not my position to go and knock on his door at this point to see if he's living there. But that's basically the information we've received since this has been deferred to this date, is that he was full intentions to be in the home, but I couldn't speak to that right now.
Okay, so then enlighten me on this. If we have bylaws that say that it has to be a principal resident,
Yeah.
right, and a secondary suite is that, and how do we prove that, right? If planning or whoever can't go knock on a door to see who's living there, how do we know that?
We had the discussion at the time that it was in Mr. Nichols' best interest to show up to the meeting tonight to answer questions on his own behalf and not have somebody else relay what was over a phone conversation as to what he was or was not doing. So I mean, until we fully know that a family is occupying the home, it's hard to move forward with a secondary suite because it is the bylaw.
Yeah, gotcha. And so if this doesn't, like, if it's not approved tonight, then how long can a person reapply if this is if this is actually the case of what they were intending?
For conditional use, we'd be looking at a 1 year, I believe.
Okay.
I don't want to 100% throw myself into that, but
Both
generally, from what I've read in the past, it is usually 1 year, and then they can reapply.
Gotcha. Councillor Porter?
I'd just like to echo fellow councillors' words here that unfortunately the applicant's not here, and so we can't ask any questions of him, and we're not even, sounds like he's not even living in there, so this is not something I'll support.
Councillor Nichols?
Thank you, Your Worship. I was looking forward to asking questions tonight of the applicant as well, in terms of what the plans were for windows privacy, the neighbor's concerns, and was really hoping that they had the discussion with a neighbor. And so seeing that I'm not being able to ask some important questions going forward, I will not be able to support this as well. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? And that's defeated. Okay, we will open up public hearing, request for conditional use, PC 40-24, CHB Developments, Visions of Independence, 39 Kelly K Street. I will ask if there is anyone here to speak in favor of this application. If you'd like to come to the mic and state your name. Press the little person button, yeah.
Good evening, Mayor Knox, councillors, officials. We just made the application.
My name is?
Sheridan.
No, your name.
Me? Well, you said my name. Chris here, CHB Development.
Thanks, Chris.
We made an application for conditional use of the home at 39 Kelly K. It has been a conditional use under R1, what is it there? R160. Currently, Vision wishes to increase the number of residents from 4 people to 5 people at 39 Kelly K. The home already consists of 5 bedrooms, and all egress and fire codes would be met for this occupancy. The home is currently occupied by 4 residents with special needs and 24/7 care. Government services have asked that Vision's home be licensed for 5 individuals. And for special care needs. This conditional use does not require any size changes to the home as it exists. Current staff numbers would remain the same with the addition of an extra person, staff member. Parking needs would not change at all. And that's basically everything I have on that.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Beers? Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Your Worship. I thank you. The question I had was in regard to compliance with the proper egress corner lot. Council, this was a conditional use that we approved back a while ago in regards to allowing group homes in all of the R1, R2, R3 locations. Units are compliant with proper egress corner lot, limited from width. And I guess the concern, of course, was the parking. You mentioned, Mr. Beers, that there wouldn't be an issue with parking.
Correct.
How would you address that? Like, if the administration has a concern, and maybe they need to clarify it, it says concerns regarding sufficient parking and increased traffic at shift change. It is on a corner lot,
Yep.
right, where very little frontage. So where would the parking, where
It's
would the
very
parking take
little
place?
frontage, but it has an oversized driveway.
Right.
It actually can hold 6 vehicles on the existing driveway.
So you're saying the existing driveway would be sufficient enough,
Yep.
and that's where they would be parked?
Yeah, as far as I
Majority
know,
of the time.
again, has administration through bylaw heard any complaints from that area in regards to parking? So would that be an issue then?
I'll just
Through,
ask administration.
Through Your Worship, to administration?
Through Your Worship, the presenter, while the home has 6 parking spots on the driveway, typically when there is a shift change, and this is related to other properties, Mr. Beers, when employees don't typically like to park right behind other employees, they often fan out into the street in these areas, and that has caused concerns with other parking. So while you're correct, you're only required 1 parking spot per resident, and you exceed that with 6 spots. There has been concerns with other properties where they may have parking requirements, but people still park in the streets for a matter of convenience. That's caused some concerns from neighbors,
Yeah.
just from information.
Yeah, good.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have at this point in time. Thank
Good.
you, Mr. Pierce.
All right.
So Mr. Beers, just maybe on that note would be, as the property owner, might be something good to communicate to Visions about parking concerns so it doesn't come up in the future for
Yeah.
sure.
No,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Good recommendation. Yep.
Yeah. Anyone else? Thank you.
Good.
I'll ask if anyone else is here to speak in favor of the application. Anyone here to speak against the application? Again, anyone here to speak against? Anyone with questions on the application? Okay, nothing, then I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Your Worship. Be it resolved, and I so move, that the public hearing for conditional use PC 40-24, CHDB Developments Inc., Visions of Independence Inc., 39 Kelly K Street, now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. All those in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Meyer.
Okay, council, in front of you, you're going to see the report to council in addition to where are we at here? In addition to a sketch of where the location actually is at. And the issue is to allow a group home in an R160, a residential single-family dwelling. This is related to bylaw 248763, or the conditional use residential land use regulations. What they're applying for is a conditional use in an R1 in order to increase the number of residents from 4 to 5. The application had been circulated to various city departments. There had been no concerns regarding there'd been no concerns other than regarding sufficient parking and increased traffic at shift change. Public notice has been sent to all property owners with a 100-meter radius, and as you can see, there have been no objections. With that said, it's the administrative recommendation, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the conditional use application of CHB Developments Inc. and Visions of Independence Inc. to allow for our group residence in an R160 residential single-family dwelling zone at the property of 39 Kelly K Street, which is legally described as Lot 11, Block 1, Plan 47427 in the parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. Any questions or comments from council? No, I'll just say that when this was sort of all first starting and we were looking at the ability to increase the numbers in these homes, I definitely had some concerns, and I'm really glad that we've worked through it and found out, with fire and egress and all of that the residents were going to be safe in these homes. And also, I think it's important too that we're really looking at parking concerns in the neighborhoods, and making sure that we're having these discussions prior to them becoming a problem. So appreciate that and moving forward with it. So I'm definitely going to be in support of this. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, we will open public hearing, request for conditional use PC 41-24, McCabe at 102 First Street Southwest. And I will ask if anyone is here to speak in favor of this application.
Taking the wrong way around. Helps get rid of some nerves. Yeah, because I'm the application, I'm the one that then comes up with.
You betcha. Yeah, so you just have to hit the little person button till we have a green light, and then just state your name for the record.
Okay.
And then the mic is yours for 10 minutes or less.
Okay. My name is Joanne McCabe, and I'm here, as you've mentioned, for the application. So, Your Worship, councillors, and fellow citizens, I'm here to request approval of the secondary suite PC 4124 and variations PC 4224 for the purpose of having my own living accommodation in the same yard as my son and daughter-in-law. Council recommends discussing application plans with neighbors for positive results. So, a letter was sent to Mr. and Mrs. Rossnagel, Mr. and Mrs. Judson, and Mr. and Mrs. Neufeld on the 5th of March 2022, prior to last application, requesting a meeting to discuss and compare information from the planning district. I would like to read that letter. So, because it's not that we haven't tried. So, dear Neufelds, Judsons, and Rossnagels, we are writing this letter in hopes that we can all come together to discuss this secondary suite for Joanne McCabe. We are hopeful by speaking directly with one another, we can compare notes and begin to understand how this has affected us all, and hopefully move forward a solution and/or compromise so that Joanne can move towards having her own home. We have had time to reflect on the events over the past 4 years, and we are fully aware that we could have handled things differently from the start. We should have stated our intentions to our neighbors from the very beginning. We were wrong, and for that we are sorry. We'd like to compare notes about what we were all told from the planning district, or more appropriately, what we were told from Mr. Brooks. We'd appreciate the opportunity to sit down with all of you in the hopes that we can move forward, or at least come away with an understanding of both sides. We are open to meeting in person or via Zoom. It is our intention to apply for the secondary suite and variation on March 7th, 2022. We can be reached at the following, and it had their names and phone numbers. So I went and introduced myself to Mr. Rossnagel, Mr. Judson, because I don't know them, and just to advise them that I was reapplying for the second suite with variations as a courtesy, and that I had some medical reasons as well. I had already mentioned it to Neufelds. There's a couple of things I debate whether to say or not. I've read the accompanying attachments on the agenda today. I find some comments offensive and believe they should not be read into records. Saying that my canvassing for support of application was done by badgering neighbors and pitting said neighbors against neighbors is absolutely false. I only was out getting support. So, I didn't know where to go from where to what, but so. Also, I would like to read the letter that was done for March of 2022, parts of it. This was to the mayor and council. As you're all well aware of this project, I will not, and Andrew presented this, I will not dive deep into the details that have been discussed over our past 3 applications. Instead, I would like to apologize for putting council in this difficult position to make a decision on a project that is standing and almost complete except for the plumbing. I would also like to apologize to all our neighbors for putting them in a position where they felt duped. There's other parts, but I'll just, because it's also mentioning me, so we'll forget that. We are willing to do whatever it takes to enable Joanne to be able to live in the home that she has put the majority of her retirement savings into. In our previous applications, our neighbors directly to the east and south of the structure had brought forward some of the following concerns that we have either rectified or are able to rectify: fire safety and privacy. We felt that we have rectified the concerns over fire safety by installing fire shutters on the east and south facing windows. And where did I go from there? There, thank you. That's why I'm an assistant. There is also fire-rated drywall on both the east and south walls. As far as privacy goes, from the south window, all I can see is trees and the roof of Neufeld's garage. And to the east, I see the roof and garage of Mr. and Mrs. Rossnagel's. There. So it doesn't affect their privacy. They actually had more privacy before the building was there, but it never affected anybody's views. So, at the end of what Andrew had said was, I know that everyone around this table and in our neighborhood would like to move on from this issue at hand. It has brought division and hard feelings. So I'm saying that there was misinformation, misguidance, misunderstanding that cannot be undone. It is now 2024, 6 years have passed, bylaws have changed, neighbors have offered support. I'm getting older, I'm 80 and going higher, but I look good for 80. I'm tired of living out of suitcases in other people's homes. So I would just hopefully hope for a positive outcome from this application, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone have questions for Ms. McCabe? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Oh. No, sorry. Go ahead. I'll ask if there's anyone else here to speak in favor of the application. No? I'll ask if there's anyone here to speak against the oh no, sorry. Never mind. I'm going to read out the letters in favor of the application. Please, Diane.
Okay. The first letter is from Bob and Jean Demon. We, the undersigned, are in favor of the application before council for the conditional use application for a secondary suite PC 41-24 and for the request for variation PC 42-24 at 102 First Street Southwest as applied for by Joanne McCabe on July 17th, 2024. We have known Joanne for many years and would be happy to welcome her into the neighborhood. Bob and Jean, and they live at 1 Dufferin Avenue. The next one is from Carol Bazile. I, the undersigned, Carol Bazile, is in favor of the application before council for the conditional use application for a secondary suite, PC 42-24, and for the request for variation, PC 42-24. First one should have been 41-24. At 102 First Street Southwest as applied for by Joanne McCabe on July 17th, 2024. Carol Bazile, who lives on 13th Street Northwest. The next one is from Aaron Bryson. To whom it may concern, I, Aaron Keith Bryson, am in favor of the application before council for the conditional use application for a secondary suite, PC 41-24, and for the request for variation, PC 42-24 at 102 First Street Southwest as applied for by Joanne McCabe on July 17th, 2024. He notes his home address is on Lincoln Avenue and his office address is on Saskatchewan Avenue. It is time to put this to bed. It bothers me that any level of government would have this much say over what a person who owns property does on their land. I fail to see how anyone is disadvantaged in any way by allowing a family to have their parent live on any structure on property they own. Sincerely, Aaron Bryson. The next one is from Orville Cairns. I have reviewed Joanne McCabe's application for the conditional use of secondary suite PC 41-24, the request for variation PC 42-24 at 102 First Street Southwest, which was applied for on July 17th, 2024. I strongly believe that these types of accommodations are the future for our active seniors. Given the wait lists for senior housing in Portage, especially those not needing assisted living arrangements, this is the perfect solution for those with family that are willing and able to provide for their loved ones. This form of living arrangement can help take some of the stress off our healthcare. As I have been a realtor in this area for over 48 years, I know there are several of these properties in our community, with some not meeting current bylaws. If this request is denied, I would like to know the legitimate reason why. Orville Cairns. This one is from Gloria Keeling. Thank you for your consideration to allow Joanne living space above the garage at her son's home in Portage. She is a tidy, quiet, considerate lady with no pets nor bad habits. She has always respected other people's privacy and will never bother or interfere her neighbors. I, the undersigned, are in favor of the application before council for the conditional use application for a secondary suite, PC 41-24, and for the request for variation, PC 42-24, at 102 First Street Southwest as applied for by Joanne McCabe on July 17th, 2024. Sincerely requesting you approve her request as above to live at 102 First Street Southwest. Thank you, Elgin and Gloria Keeling. The next one is from Dave Rogers, who lives on Crescent Road. Dear Sir, Madam, I am writing to express my strong support for Joanne McCabe's application for the conditional use of a secondary suite, PC 41-24, and the request for variation, PC 42-24, at 102 First Street Southwest, Portage la Prairie, which was submitted on July 17th, 2024. As a longtime resident and professional in the real estate business for over 40 years, I have witnessed the evolution of our community and understand the pressing needs of our citizens, especially our seniors. The proposal to establish secondary suites specifically designed for senior housing is a commendable initiative that holds numerous benefits for both families and our community at large. Allowing for secondary suites creates an opportunity to keep families together while helping to provide elderly residents with the independence they desire. This arrangement not only helps ensure that seniors remain close to their loved ones, but it also helps to retain them within our community, avoiding the need to relocate to other areas due to a lack of suitable housing options. Additionally, the proposed location at 102 First Street Southwest is ideal, featuring a large yard and a beautiful setting that will enhance the quality of life for its occupants. From a municipal perspective, the development of secondary suites would also likely increase the city's tax revenue while offering a solution to the growing need for senior housing. It's a win-win situation that supports both the well-being of our aging population and the vitality of our city. Respectfully, I believe that approving this application will positively impact our community by providing a much-needed housing option for our seniors while strengthening family bonds and enhancing the quality of life in Portage la Prairie. I strongly urge you to consider this proposal favorably and make it an official part of our city's development strategy. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Dave Rogers. The next one is from Percy Phillips. We at 101 First Street Southwest have no issue with the proposed application for PC 41-24 or the request for variation 42-24 as applied for by Joanne McCabe on July 17th. It is a good thing to have two residences on one lot with a single title and an affordable way to add housing with minimal impact on the infrastructure in the city. Regards, Percy and Beverly Phillips from 101 First Street Southwest. The next one is from Don Klippenstein and Galen Tibiatowski. First, regarding the application for conditional use, file number 41-24. We both support this application and have signed the petition that has been presented to the variation board. Our reasons for supporting this application are briefly outlined in the application for variance below. Then they discuss the application for variance, file number PC 42-24. Although we have expressed our opposition in writing in previous attempts to pass the variances listed on this application, due to evidence brought to our attention by Justin McCabe, we now find ourselves in a position whereby we feel we must now support his application for the variances on his property. We want to make ourselves very clear with regards to our concerns about this whole fiasco with the variances. In the first place, this property should not have been built in the location that it was built, as it is encroaching too close to neighboring properties. Why was it allowed to happen? Many of us, ourselves included, did not dispute that upon receiving the original application for variance. We still wonder why there was a need to do it, though, when it absolutely was not necessary. This property should never have been built as living quarters above the garage, as this whole neighborhood was told in an official document from the Portage Planning District that it was an area that was going to be used for storage. We feel that most people in our community were okay with what we were led to believe was the intended purpose of this build. As the building process progressed, it appeared to most that Justin McCabe was doing whatever he wanted to do with that property, regardless of what he was approved to build. We now know that the planning district knew differently from the start of the project and that the intended use was for living quarters, not storage. We were informed by Justin that the original application for variance letter that went out to our community had to be worded the way it was, which ultimately was incredibly misleading to our community members, because the city of Portage did not, at the time, have the correct zoning in place, which would allow for a second residence on Justin and Andrea's property. Justin said that he had been told that the zoning changes were supposedly in the works in the very near future. Indeed, we have come to find out that there are actually other properties in our city that had a second residence on the property even before the required zoning was put in place. Our question is, why was our community misled? Why not just tell us the true intentions of this property in the first place? We feel that had our community been giving the correct information in the official documents, This needless discontent, and that's putting it mildly, in our neighborhood would never have happened. So what to do now? There has been a lot of water under the bridge. The building has been built. There has been a great deal of finger pointing. Where do we go from here? Personally, we are fed up with this. We don't want to continue to write letters against or for anyone anymore. There is a saying that is very applicable at this time. We won't include the first word, but it ends with, or get off the pot. Justin was told by an employee of the Portage la Prairie Planning District to make very costly changes to bring the property in question up to code for the purposes of personal safety in case of a fire. He has installed fire shutters and made other changes at the request of the staff at the Planning District office. We both wondered why an official from the planning office would tell Justin that he absolutely must make these changes if indeed the changes wouldn't lead to the McCabe family being able to use the property for their intended purpose of the property. As well, why would Justin even consider going to the trouble and considerable expense in making these changes if it didn't allow for this space to be used as living quarters? So much does not add up in this long, drawn-out saga. We also have questions as to why this property wasn't inspected at various points during the building process, and why the inspector did not put his findings in writing and then sign off on these inspections throughout the whole building process. If the inspections have indeed been completed and signed off, then why are Justin and Andrea McCabe finding themselves in this position? For that matter, why is our community finding ourselves in this position? In conclusion, if the McCabes have met the building requirements set out by the City of Portage la Prairie, and if all of their legal requirements or issues have been settled in a fair manner to all concerned, we support the variances in this application. Sincerely, Don Klippenstein and Galen Tiviatowski. From 65 Dufferin Avenue West. I think that's it for letters of support, other than there's a list of signatures that were received in support. So I won't read all the names, but there's, it's attached to the agenda.
Thank you. No, sorry. Oh, if you, yeah, you have to come to the microphone, Joanne. Miss McCabe, if you want to ask something or say something.
Yeah, no, sorry. Your Worship and Council, I thought there was
No,
also
just
a
wait.
letter from.
We have to turn it on, sorry.
Oh.
It's for the
You
video.
can hear me right out of town.
It's for the video.
Sorry, sorry. I thought there was also a letter there from Frey.
Yeah, so these letters, they either reference the conditional use or the variation.
Oh,
Some
I
of them
see.
reference both.
Okay.
So Mr. Fraze's letter only referenced the variation, so it's
Oh.
attached to the next.
Thank you.
item.
Okay, thank you.
thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I will ask if there is anyone here to speak in objection of the conditional use request. Anyone here against? Sure, if you want to come up to the microphone.
Good evening, Your Worship.
Oh, so just-
Councilors, this press,
Could you just lift that up a little bit closer to you? Yeah.
it'll be really loud now. This presentation is from Elena and Leonard Rossnagel. We live at 151 Tupper Street South, behind the property in question. This presentation will also serve as our objections to the variances, should it come to that. We sympathize with Mrs. McCabe's situation, but council must consider the facts.
Mr. Rossnagel, can you just, Jen, can you put the presentation up if possible?
Yeah, I'll have the slides in a bit,
Okay.
but I've got a little intro here, so you got some time. We sympathize with Mrs. McCabe's situation, but council must consider the facts of this build in their decisions tonight. It is a fact that this building was granted a height variance to be built as a garage with second-story storage, And in fact, I spoke in favor of that variance. It is a fact that this building was always intended to be a residence. It's a fact that council turned down the first application for a conditional use as a secondary suite. It's a fact that council turned down the second application as a secondary suite. It's a fact that the building was completed as a residence despite council's decision. It's a fact that the application for a conditional use as a secondary suite was defeated by council a third time. So now here are a few slides that give a little detail to these facts. This is a view of the structure from the corner of the yard of Ken Neufeld and Diana Meserton Neufeld of 20 Crescent Road West. You can see the corner of their garage on the right. Next slide, please. So a little bit of timeline here, and some of this has been gone through again, and if it's repetitious, I apologize. And this was the original variation to vary the height. The only plans we ever saw was the not-to-scale footprint sketch for the variance hearing. As we learned at the October 2019 hearing, it had always been the applicant's intent to build a residence. Next slide, please. So here are the plans that I'm told were submitted with the permit application. I would like to point out that the windows in reality are larger than in these to scale plans. I must emphasize that the first time any of us in the neighborhood saw these plans was 10 days before the hearing in 2019, when I obtained copies of them along with the building permits. Note the outside staircase to the second story, many windows and second story patio complete with double patio doors. It sure doesn't look like a second story storage to me. Next slide, please. So the building permits had some interesting items on them, and here's a statement from the building permit. Now the bolding was on the permit. It says requirements/conditions. Garage with storage above. If used for something else in the future, plans to be supplied. Nevertheless, we heard at the hearing in 2019 that it had always been the applicant's intention to build a suite above the garage rather than storage. Next. Yeah, so I don't know too much about this, but this kind of jumped out at me. The code review of the garage pad specifically states, this slab is intended for a residential storage garage. It is not intended to be an inhabited space. Next slide, please. So summer 2018 construction. As construction progressed, the garage with storage room above began to look more like a house with first story garage. There's a balcony overlooking the Neufeld's yard, where they used to have a nice little pond that they've since taken out. Exterior stairway and entrance, many windows, interior wall framing, plumbing stack, plumbers on site for many days. So, next slide. Yes, you're there. September the 24th, 2018. We got a notice that to commence the zoning amendment process for an R2. And then that was canceled because this request was withdrawn as Portage Planning determined the structure did not qualify. And this is really the first time that we knew that this intended to be a dwelling. Then, in September the 19th, 2019, Council passed the secondary suite bylaw. We were never opposed to a new bylaw. We were opposed to it being used in an underhanded way to legalize a methodically planned and carried out illegal build. Next slide, please. So, the first conditional use hearing on October the 15th, 2019. At the hearing 2 months later, just a month later, I'll correct that, this council unanimously defeated the motion to give this structure conditional use as a secondary suite. In answers to questions, Mr. Brooks stated that even to remain a garage, the east windows would have to be removed or fire shutters installed, since a garage or a dwelling has to be 4 feet from the property line, and it's nowhere near that. Okay, so we had our suspicions that this structure was very close to our property line. So,
Mr. Rossnagel, you have 2 minutes left.
oh, okay. We had a survey completed and a building location certificate, and in fact, it encroaches 0.6 feet onto our property. And there's I'm not going to go into that then because I'm going to run out of time. But despite and contrary to council's decision to not grant a conditional use, construction of the suite was resumed in December. In April, furniture and appliances were moved in. Sometime in April, it appeared someone was living upstairs above the garage. Sometime later, the suite no longer appeared occupied. Fire shutters were installed shortly before the December 2020 hearing. The long-standing fire code violations may have been satisfied for the structure to remain a garage. And at the December 14th, 2020 meeting, the motion was decisively defeated. Another one on 2022, which was defeated again. We urge council to once again defeat this conditional use motion. If this conditional use and the required variances are granted, there will be nothing to prevent this suite from eventually becoming a rental property. And if you go to my last slide here, I'll just take me to the last slide. Is that it? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I haven't done too much of this. Blatant regard for process, the bylaw violations, it's too big, it's 21% larger than the bylaw. The rear yard is too small, 40% of requirement, and the side yard is too small, 69% of requirement. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions for Mr. Rossnagel before he leaves the mic? Councillor Doyle?
Through your worship to the presenter, I'm just curious, did the applicant, Ms. McCabe, have a conversation with you prior to today's hearing at all? Or did she try to reach out to you?
I was standing in Mr. and Mrs. Judson's backyard, and she approached Mr. Judson for his support. She asked who I was. I said who I was. She continued to talk to Mr. Judson. I left with my dog.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Rossnagel, a couple of questions for me. As things seem to morph from a garage to the secondary or the suite, like, did you make the planning district aware that this was happening, or was it just sort of morphed all of a sudden, or can you just give me a little?
It was gradual, but from our side, not quite as obvious as from the First Street side, but we assumed that Portage Planning was monitoring this build. We didn't think it was our duty to be policing this. We assumed that they were on it.
Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Your Worship. Another question. We have before us the conditional use. We have the variation. They're two separate issues, of course. And as was mentioned by Councillor Meyer, we have a secondary suite bylaw in place now. Is your objection, I mean, ultimately you've stated your opposition to both, but is there on your part, any room to, on a compromise that, because in terms of, is your objection more on the suite or on the variations and the closeness to your property, which is always a sensitive issue. We get this at council a lot, so there are two separate issues here, and I just
Yeah,
want
but they're so intertwined, though. If you want me to choose, yeah, of course you want me to choose. You asked me to. More on the variances than the suite as such. Who knows if it had been built according to the bylaw? Like, we can't go back and we can't go back in time. We may have not objected. I do not know. Like, we weren't given that opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nichols?
Thank you, Worship. Through to the presenter. Similar question as what Councillor Massey had. The secondary suite. My question is that, and I noticed that there's folks that are not here tonight to be able to speak as well. But it's a fair question in terms of if we look at the application for the suite itself. And I know that there's been some misleading, and I've heard apologies for this. I know that our bylaw wasn't in place at that time, and obviously it came, and I know that, and the McCabe's have remorsefully apologized for their first, like the intentions were changed. In retrospect, when I look at it now, from what I've seen and what I've heard in the letters tonight, although I'm still wondering the initial application, the initial building, whether it started out as a storage or now it morphed into as council to a secondary suite, right? Like I think that there was changes in the plans as we seen it, changes in the construction as we go forward in terms of that secondary suite. And I know that they've apologized because this is where they are today, and whether they had full intentions of starting that. I want you to know that this is new to my table and in front of me. And my question is that too, and you've kind of explicitly said that if you had to choose, but my question would be then, are you seeing that the secondary suite is something that would be acceptable?
Well, we were never given the opportunity to have any objection to it from the first instance, and I certainly remember, I didn't look up the actual video, but I do remember Mayor Knox questioning the presenters, was it your intention from the beginning to build a suite? And the answer was yes. So, we weren't given any opportunity to approve or object to it till it was a fait accompli.
Thank you. Thank you, Worship.
Councillor Porter, time for questions? Yep.
Yeah, I guess I just want a little clarification. So, you're not so against there being a suite up there if you had known about it right from the beginning, but I think what you're trying to say is that is it the variance, is it overhang, or the view that they get from their yard to your yard, or?
Oh, it's the whole package, but of course, it being overhanging our property is certainly a major concern. And if the variances are granted, I'm not sure how that all works then, because then it's said, well, the encroachment's okay. Like that's what it's going to say, I'm thinking, and it's not. So I guess when it comes right down to it, the variances are primary.
Okay,
Thank you for that clarification.
thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Rossnagel? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll ask if anyone else is here to speak against the application. Okay, we have some letters of objection to be read out. Please, Dan. Ms.
Yes.
Van Aert.
The first one is from Ken Neufeld and Diana Messington Neufeld. Dear council members, please accept this letter in response to the application for conditional use PC 41-24. We are opposed to this request. This building has never met the City of Portage building regulations and continues to non-conform. Allowing a conditional use now would set a precedent where builders could build however they wish with no consequences. I believe council's intent is to lead the public by enforcing the rules and bylaws that they have established. Thank you, Ken Neufeld and Diana Messington Neufeld. The next one is from Lori Carlson Judson and Dave Judson. Dear Mayor and Council, we would have preferred to present our objections in person. However, we are out of province at a family event and unavailable to do so. This is the fourth time that the McCabe's have submitted this conditional use request for their garage storage structure. Though it has been the homeowners, Justin and Andrea McCabe, who have submitted the request on previous applications, the latest bears the name Joanne McCabe. Nothing has changed since their first request, except that the initial request depicted the build as a roughly hand-drawn rectangle in the southeast area of the property. The latest rendering is more detailed, but deceptively so. The position of the structure looks to be similar on the east and south sides, yet the true measurements are significantly different. We remain opposed to this request and continue to see the construction of this structure and the occupancy of it as disregard for city and provincial laws and bylaws that are meant to protect communities and neighborhoods from such abuses. It is most troubling to see that since the council's third and latest denial and their directive that the structure was not sanctioned for occupancy, that Joanne McCabe occupies it. As time passes, the McCabes have put pressure on others to agree to have his mother live in the structure, to accept their continuing and admitted deceptions, to ignore the illegalities that have led to such upset with neighbors and other community members. What was claimed by the McCabes to be a garage with storage has become a fully conceptualized and constructed residence with all of the infrastructure and amenities to support habitation. Their documented encroachments on a neighbor's property and their badgering of the neighbors to feel empathetic toward their situation and their attempts through lobbying to make this a neighbor versus neighbor issue is detracting from the real issue and only serves to increase the need for a resolution. Our understanding is that the structure is allowed to exist as a garage. The fact that it has been built too close to property lines, even as a garage, is still an issue. We stand by our position that this has been illegal since the start, and that to give conditional use to the owners makes a mockery of city bylaws, the people responsible for upholding them, and to community members who follow them responsibly. To approve this would be to legitimize the structure as a rental property and turn a blind eye to the purposeful skirting of the law. Nothing has changed except for the stress that continues to build as the situation goes unresolved. Unfortunately, the McCabes press others to accept their self-made problem without having to address and fix the problems themselves. It is not up to the neighbors to bend to their wishes. This must be between the city and the McCabes. We are challenged with answering to the same request year after year unless the city addresses the issue at the foundation of its conception. In closing, we remind council that at the outset of this issue, 30 neighbors had signed a petition to stop this illegal action the first time the McCabes submitted their request. We believe that this view resonates in the community today. Sincerely, Lori Carlson Judson and Dave Judson. The next one from Jim Brands and Lori Collier. Dear Mayor and Councillors, we are writing to express our opposition to the latest applications for variance and conditional use regarding 102 First Street Southwest, this time made by Joanne McCabe. This variance and conditional use applications were initially refused on October 15th, 2019, and the original applicants, Justin and Andrea McCabe, were instructed to make changes to the structure so that it could function as a garage with storage. The original applicants neglected to make any of the necessary changes, went ahead and finished the construction so that the structure could be a residence for the present applicant, Joanne McCabe, and then continued to apply for variance and conditional use. This is the fourth time that the neighborhood has had to respond to this blatant disregard of the city's bylaws. The arrogance and continuously The arrogance of continuously reapplying for something that has already been denied for very good reasons is both astonishing and troubling. This has caused unnecessary stress and conflict in our neighborhood, and in our opinion, it is unacceptable that these applications continue to reoccur on a regular basis. We urge you to reject this application again for the same reasons as it was rejected for the last 3 times. We would also appreciate if the applicants were denied any further applications on this matter. Sincerely, Jim Brands and Lori Collier from Dufferin Avenue West.
Thank you. At this time, Ms. McCabe has an opportunity to answer any concerns that were read in the letters or comments that you'd like to make before we close the public hearing.
Your worship, councillors.
Just pull that down again.
Oh, sorry.
Or stand on tippy toes.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
I'm too heavy to stand on my tippy toes. There was a comment that said in Lester Judson's letter, I believe. It said I'm living in there, which is not true. So that I wanted to comment on. I do go up there in the daytime because the house is an office for Justin, but I do go up there in the daytime when I'm in Portage. Mostly I have been in Winnipeg and in Brandon and in Benito most of the summer. So, and I wouldn't have even been here except for other reasons. I couldn't go up to BC for now. That's why I bought a 5th wheel last year, so I had a place to live. As far, I don't want to go there, but yes, there has been misunderstandings from the very, very beginning as far as how the planning was done, in the sense of what we were told to do, what you could do, the sign, and suggesting to say this or do that. So I have no control over that. It's passed. There's nothing we can do about it. The building is standing there. I need a place to live. I'm actually a nice neighbor, Mr. Rossnagel, but but I understand you being upset, but it has nothing, there's nothing we can do about that. And I think life needs to go on. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Unless there's questions.
Thank you. Council have anything else? Any questions before we close? Okay, I'll ask for motion to close the public hearing. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Be it resolved, and I so move that the public hearing for conditional use PC 41-24, McCabe, 102 First Street Southwest, now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. All those in favor? And that is closed. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. As Council has heard over the last little bit there, for the Planning Economic Development Committee, the request is for a conditional use for 102 First Street Southwest. And the issue is to allow a secondary suite to be located above the existing detached garage. As always, our alternatives to approve the conditional use is presented, to approve the conditional use application with conditions, or in turn to deny the conditional use application. The background: Justin McCabe, Joanne McCabe, and Andrew McCabe have applied for a conditional use to allow for a secondary suite to be located above an existing detached garage, and the applicant would like to live in the secondary suite. For Council's information, the owners have applied for similar conditional use requests in September 2019, December 2020, and March 2022. The minute references are there for your reference. Those motions at that time were defeated. The owners have since disconnected all plumbing, drain, and water lines, had fire-rated shutters on the east and south windows installed, and no one has been living in the space. I do want to note that there's also, and I'll get to it in a second, there's also a request for a variation that is attached to this. So quite simply, if the conditional use is approved, then the variance would have to be approved as well in order for the applicant to carry on as a secondary suite. If the conditional use is not approved, it will not go to the variation because it'll be moot at that point in time. If the conditional use is approved and the variation is not approved, once again, the applicant cannot use it as a secondary suite. Currently, this property is located in an R1 residential single-family zone. The application was circulated to various city departments. There have been no objections. We have received multiple letters of support. They've all been read into the record there tonight, and public notices have been sent to all property owners within a 100-meter radius. So that's the report to council. Obviously, the sketch and the site plan was there for your reference as well. And it's the administrative recommendation, and I so move that the council of the city of Portage la Prairie approve the conditional use application of Joanne McCabe to allow for a secondary suite to be located above the existing detached garage in an R1 residential single-family zone at the property 102 First Street Southwest, which is legally described as Lot 3, Block 1, Plan 1998 in the parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. Council have any questions? Or, never mind. All those in favor?
No,
sorry.
no. Sorry. Thank you, Your Worship.
There we go, yes. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, from my chair, council, I just want to be clear on a couple of things. One is that, again, this conditional use is tied to the variance, which is the next motion, which I had spoke to previously. I also want council to understand that I am a property owner within a 100-meter radius and receive the same documents. Any comments or any biases I have tonight have no relation to that and are strictly for the face of the actual conditional use request itself. And I also want council to understand that this is not about Joanne McCabe. I want to be clear on that, right? Sometimes in the social media, it starts getting referenced into a wrong point. It never was about Joanne McCabe. It's about the process. The secondary suite bylaw came back in 2019 in order for this very purpose. Unfortunately, things maybe didn't go the way they were supposed to go. And the intent of the original bylaws we talked about was to create density, whether it be a secondary suite for an elderly parent or a relative or a son or a daughter and so on. It is not designed to circumvent the R2 process. I have some doubts about the way this thing actually had gone, and I know I've spoken to it previously, and I also want council to know that even though we've dealt with it previously, you got to look at it on the face of its own merit today. I do, for the record, want to point out I really respect the letters of support and the effort that the applicant did to take and get that, but I also want to note the letters of objection, and I'm not sure what weighs more on either side. The letters of objection are from the 3 immediate property owners. So in my head, that has to hold a little bit of weight compared to all of the letters of support. The other thing I noticed is that in our bylaw, it also states, and I just got a quick question for accounts or for administration through Her Worship. The secondary suite bylaw indicates that if a secondary suite is above a detached garage, the minimum rear yard shall be 1.5 meters, side yard shall be 1.5 meters on an interior yard, and 3.6 meters on a corner lot, and 3 meters from the principal dwelling. So nonetheless, that's the reason for the variance that'll come up next. But if I'm not in favor of the variance, how can I vote for this conditional use if that's already one of the processes that has to be in there? Which really, sorry, I apologize further, which really is designed to be able to take place before the project begins.
Mr. Pito?
I'll speak to that first, and I'll allow Mr. Gessel to add details if he has anything to add. So when you're looking at a conditional use, you're really approving the concept, and I know it's a bit counterintuitive to approve something that requires variations to begin with. So when we're looking at conditional use, council should be looking at this from a concept of, does this property, this secondary suite, make sense on that property if it were in compliance? We know it's not in compliance because there's a variation request, but they are essentially 2 separate issues in essence. Now, you referenced the bylaw and referenced the requirements in the bylaw. Well, the variation is addressing those bylaws. So the bylaw covers 2 things. It covers, can you have a conditional use for a secondary suite? Yes. If you are not in compliance in terms of side yard variation, what is the requirement? Well, then you have to apply for a variation. I'm hoping I'm answering your questions, Councilor Meyer.
That was everything? Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think that clarifies it. I guess what I'm concerned with is that if I voted in favor of a secondary suite bylaw, which is really what the intent of this bylaw that council passed in 2019. We want to see these things happen. But it's the story about asking permission, begging forgiveness, right? And I don't want to go on the latter because this is stuff that really needs to be done beforehand. If it had been, this would never be an issue. We wouldn't have even talked about this. So my next question is that if I vote in favor of the concept of a secondary suite, but in there it already talks about that it's the detached garage, and of course it has to have those meters. I'm not voting in favor of that portion of the bylaw, and I'm not committing that that can be done at that point. It still has to go to the variation, am I correct?
Correct, you're correct.
Okay.
Yes.
At that point in time then, I certainly can speak in favor of the secondary suite because that's what our bylaw was intended to do, but I will not be speaking in favor of the variance. So I don't know what to move forward at this point in time, but I know we're dealing with one specific issue at a time, and I know how they're tied in, so. But anyways, that's where I'm at this point in time, Your Worship.
Mr. Gessel just had comments, I believe, from your Councillor Meyer, your question.
Yeah, just to clarify a few things. Well, one thing, you're mentioning a detached garage. That's separate from what we're doing here. It's secondary suite, so there is different variations for a detached garage. A free-alone detached garage would not even have come to council. You can have 0.6 for a rear yard. So this would have been approved, done, and over with. It would have had a detached garage. Because there's a unit above it, a separate area, that has to go under the variances you're noting. So just kind of be aware of kind of the way we're wording it. We're dealing with a secondary suite. We're not dealing with a detached garage. We're dealing with a garage that has a secondary suite above it.
Where a secondary suite is above a detached garage, the minimum sorry.
I'm just letting you know,
Yeah.
like just for future and so that we're not confusing, this is a detached garage with a secondary suite. We're not just talking about a detached garage. So we gotta be careful how we word that because a detached garage on its own would have been approved and a non-issue based on the bylaw.
Right, but what I'm reading is that when a secondary suite is above a detached garage,
Correct.
but it's not the detached garage you're looking at, it's because the secondary suite is
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Got it.
just so that everybody's clear that it is because of the secondary suite above.
Got it. Thank you, Your Worship.
Yep. Can I make a couple comments before? And the reason I want to make comments is because, like Councillor Meyer I was here for this coming up, and some of the comments in some of the letters too, when it came to, or in some of the presentations was, why did planning not be going and inspecting this and catching things along the way? Well, because, for instance, the site was built with no plumbing permits. So planning can't go look at things where there's no permits drawn for it. We learned that, right? So they can't, you learn they just can't go knock on a door and say, hey, are you putting a washroom in? It's the onus on citizens to apply for permits, and then planning can go and inspect to make sure that what's done is being done. I too am very much in favor, and you could hear it through my tenure as a councillor and as a mayor, of secondary suites. I believe in granny suites. I believe in our changes in our housing situation in our city and in our country to be able to, when you have the land, when you do it properly, when you do it on the up and up, to be able to build suites for family members or, people who need to be living on your property. I think it is a way of the future, and I 100% am in favor of that. This is a very unfortunate situation, and I do commend the applicant in this because I can tell you I have received a lot of correspondence on this in the last 2 years. Correspondence from the applicants asking how, and the response is, I cannot discuss this until it's in front of council, like today, with you. However, we see success when applicants talk to their neighbors and work it out with their neighbors. And so I do commend Ms. McCabe for attempting to do that. And also being present with that. But like Councillor Meyer said, is that there are concerns from the direct neighbors there. But I will say, I do believe in secondary suites. And when somebody says, well, you voted against secondary the last time. And I say, I did vote against it. Because at that time is when I was learning from the applicant at that time, yes, they deceived us. They said right from the beginning was that they were applying for a garage. That was said. Then I found out there was no permits drawn for different things like plumbing, said right in the meeting. That's what influenced my decision. So I'll be honest with you of saying that I was looking at secondary suites wasn't the thing that was on the top of my mind at that time. It was what I was hearing from that specific application, not in secondary suites in general, if that makes sense. Because I know my colleagues probably have questions about that, as in what's happening here. Councillor Massey. And sorry, just one other thing. Feel free to ask me any questions about any of it. Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a tough issue, and I, as a new councillor, I want to be as fair as I can, but I'm going to be making a motion that we table this to the September council meeting. I'd like to speak to it. I believe I can speak to the date of the tabling of a motion.
So we have a motion to table to the September 11th council meeting. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Porter?
You're free to ask questions.
If I may, for a matter
Yeah,
of
thank you.
procedure, so when a motion to table is put forward and seconded, it needs a simple majority to pass. The only debatable component of it is the date, not the reasoning to table.
Thank you.
Councillor Doyle?
Before we get into that, do the rest of us have an opportunity to ask those
No,
questions? Okay.
It's right now we have a motion and a second for the tabling. So then no debate on the date? You have a debate on the date?
Yes. Well, just, I can speak to the date in favor of this motion. I think for me, delaying this 1 month to allow, I'm a new councillor, we have other new councillors here. This is a lot of serious stuff, and I would like the opportunity to make a really informed decision about.
Sorry, Your Worship,
Yeah.
I apologize to my respected colleague, Councillor Massey, but I think we're getting away from the
Yeah,
date.
it's only the date that you can just say. Because what that means is it's either September 11th or the next meeting. That's all that you can.
I speak in favor of the date of September 11th.
Okay. And it's seconded by Councillor Porter. And all those in favor? Opposed? And it's defeated. Okay, so we'll continue on. Any questions or comments? Councillor Doyle?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Your Worship to planning, can you just confirm, other than the variations required, does this secondary suite meet all the other requirements of our secondary suite bylaw?
At this point, I can only speak to conditional use, which we're on the topic of. So if we're talking about conditional use of the application, it meets all requirements to be a conditional use. Every matter that was brought forward in the past, which I've researched and looked into, has been addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Porter?
So does that include the plumbing, or the plumbing's out? From what I understand, there is no plumbing in there, so that would be
Plumbing is
different
not
permits?
connected.
Okay.
Plumbing
Not
is
connected or
It's
removed?
not connected. The plumbing is a total separate permit.
Okay.
What would happen is, basically speaking on conditional use application, which is right now, 4124, requirements have been met for that application. that were set out by previous council or planning district before my time. When we look at plumbing, if we end up going to the variation, if it passed the variations, which is 4224, at that point, all required building permits, accordance to code, everything else would have to be obtained and followed through with and passed. If that's the question that you're asking.
Okay, and we make a regular routine of going in and inspect to see that these things are all done?
Yep, absolutely. What happens is once permits are pulled, then we require plans, submittals as to what is the prints. It's not just hook it up yourself. We want to know that it's done properly. And we're on, basically, we either set up a schedule with the applicant to go and inspect, or we wait for their call when they're finished or nearing completion to go out and inspect all required applications for their permits and codes.
Okay, and what happens if they don't pass inspection?
Then it's basically withheld until they clean it up and make it follow suit on code.
Okay.
So if it doesn't meet code, then they still have the opportunity to correct it, but it means they do not get occupancy and it does not move forward until every code is met and requirements are followed through with.
Yep, thank you.
Councillor Nichols?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is questions that and the reason that I supported the tabling was to actually ask and find out further too in terms of the secondary suite. So I'm learning here, and I'm seeing that the questions that we're now asking you in terms of, I didn't realize that we could still delve into that information and understand that, in fact, all conditions have been met in terms of what you need what we require for a secondary suite. So this is good information. Thank you.
Just to add to that, that would be on the conditional use, not towards the variations.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
Your Worship. Thank
yeah.
you.
I think a good reminder to council is right at this point in time, what's on the table is the conditional use. Then we move to then we move for, yeah. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted one further comment, and I just wanted to echo your comments in regards to, and I only reference it because it does reference it in here about the three similar requests and before. The question that I asked myself when I got this is what changed in those three? Nothing, right? I mean, it's been exactly the same. So the only thing that's changed is myself. In the fact that I will approve a conditional use for a location, sometimes over the objection of the neighbors, because it's the right thing to do for the community and the right thing that we have. Sometimes that balances out. In this case here, as I say, I will be supporting the request for conditional use, but I will not be supporting the variations. So, thank you, Your Worship.
Yeah, this conditional use, yeah. Councillor Massey, yeah.
Thank you, Worship. And just a question, I just want to be very clear, and like Councillor Nichol, I mean, I'm not afraid making decisions. That's not why. But planning is a complex, it can be, as the mayor said, it's a lot of talking to your neighbor. There's a lot of hurt. This breaks my heart for my beautiful city. It really does. But I want to ask through administration, if the conditional use is approved, but the variance is not, and I know, so I can't ask about the variance, is that?
You're right. So I think what's stated, like you, if the conditional use is approved, then we move on to the variation. If the variation is approved, the applicant can move on to next steps, right, to be a secondary suite. If the variation is not approved, then it can't be inhabited. It stops there, okay? I'm giving time here because I want everybody to. Councillor Meyer.
Your Worship, do you mind if I just repeat the motion?
Yeah, just want to make sure. Is everybody good enough to call a question?
I would like.
To hear the motion again?
Sorry, I would like to hear the motion again.
Yeah, we'll do that, but I just want to make sure before you do that again. Okay. Oh, Councillor Nichols.
Just for clarification through, thank you, Your Worship, through to administration. So all needs are in place for the secondary suite in terms of we know that for sure.
For the conditional use?
Conditional use, yes.
For the conditional use, which is all I am speaking of, because that is what we are dealing with right now.
Okay.
We cannot move past this
Yep.
until there is a vote on this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. And again, the administrative recommendation, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the conditional use application of Joanne McCabe to allow for a secondary suite to be located above the existing detached garage in an R1 residential single-family zone at the property 102 First Street Southwest, which is legally described as Lot 3, Block 1, Plan 1998 in the parish of Portage la Prairie.
All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, we will open public hearing request for variation 42-24, McCabe 102 First Street Southwest. I will ask if there is anyone here to speak in favor of this application. Thank you.
Thanks.
So,
Your Worship and Councilors. The only thing that, on the variations, that corner where the garage was built is exactly the same corner as where the original carriage house was. The size is bigger, but that corner and where it was towards Mr. Rossnagel's or to Mr. Newfeld's is exactly where the carriage house was.
okay.
As for the variation by Mr. Rossnagel's, the variation is like just a few inches, and it's only part of it because, as you can see, somehow the buildings are at an angle to the lot. I don't know whose that is, but anyway, I know that, so it's only like a foot or so of the eaves trough length that is encroaching on, or whatever the proper word is, on Mr. Rossnagel's property. And also then the closeness to Ken and Diane Newfeld's is also just a piece of the building. As you can see, it's an angle. And it's this is over 100-year-old lot or whatever. So, but we offered to do whatever to correct the part that's encroaching on Mr. Rossnagel's property. We can't do anything about the distance between, like that one end of Mr. Newfeld's, because the building is there. So there's nothing that we personally can do. I don't know if there's any other questions. I'm not totally familiar with everything, but
Gotcha.
okay.
Does
Thank-
anyone have questions for Ms. McCabe on this? No? Thank you. Oh, sorry, I'm wrong.
I guess one of the questions that I kind of baffled with is when you decided that you actually wanted to build and you wanted to build this or suite upstairs. At the time, was it a thought in your mind about the balcony, about looking over on top of other people's yards, or was that a concern of yours?
I of course wanted a deck.
Right.
I like to be outside and be in the yard, and I just can't imagine ever living in an apartment or a building where you can't go outside from your property. Plus, you would be limited, which at the time I don't think we really knew what the square meters you are allowed in a suite. But the deck was 12 by 12 except for the extra 4 feet for the stairs to go down. So it's really 16 by 12 on top of there. Sorry, what was your question?
Well, I
Did
guess
really
the question was supposedly wasn't the intention to build a suite to start with. It was to build a garage, but there's a little discretion there whether it was or wasn't. But in your mind, did you envision having a balcony up there when they talked about having a suite?
Yeah, like, because you want to be able to go outside.
Right. Okay.
mean what I want?
But is that something, like, you wouldn't go out in the wintertime, you probably, or would you?
If I'm
Could?
still allowed to,
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to Arizona if I
Okay.
want to, if I can.
Yeah. So is
But-
this a place where you're thinking that
But
this
you wouldn't
is,
go out there in the winter, no, you're right.
is this a place that you think that you're comfortable living with till
Till I have to go somewhere else?
you have to go somewhere
Or
else?
I'm not here?
You know, the stairs,
Yes.
does that,
Yeah,
does
no,
that worry you at all?
No, because I would look at having the lift thing. The one side of the stairs is, because it's iron or steel or whatever, so it is made so that if you ever had to have something, it was done properly.
Okay.
Right.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Nichols?
Thank you, Worship. Through to the presenter. You mentioned that there's nothing you can do in terms of these variance requests, like in
No.
terms of mitigating them? Is there? Sorry.
So I said, yes, we have said that we could do the part that infringes on Mr. Rossnagel's property, because it's just the eaves trough. So the eaves trough could be taken down or bent in the distance. You don't want to take the eaves trough down because the water's going to go straight down. It'll go into his property, actually, likely. Or like bend in the eaves trough to the building, like flush to the building, the distance that encroaches on his property. What I said was that we couldn't really do anything about, as far as distance concerned, is that would be the southwest corner at the back that touches Mr. Neufeld's property, back to back with Mr. Neufeld's property. Because the building is already built, it's only a portion that actually is closer than it should be. But we were advised where we could put it in the first place. So,
A garage. Storage garage.
right.
With eaves, like when I say eaves in terms of, so there was no considerations there in terms of the physical size of the eaves for the,
No, I don't
Okay.
know this is how.
okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
No one else? For Ms. McCabe? Yeah. Sorry. Councillor Mass.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. And Ms. McCabe, thank you for coming out tonight. And my own family's been through this. I totally understand. But what I just don't understand is, and I know you probably weren't involved at the beginning, why was there no communication with the neighbors? Why was there not? This is
Actually-
5 years later now.
Oh,
And I mean,
It's actually
I sit on the
6.
planning board when people, sorry, Ms. McCabe, I'll just finish.
I'm sorry.
When we're dealing with planning, everything that starts bad and ends up at this table is always never pleasant, and you can see that tonight.
I know
Just
that.
what happened there? Like, I mean, these people are citizens. You're a citizen of Portage. We have a beautiful community. Why was there no just, hey, this is what we're planning?
It was kind of advised as to what should be said and done. And so, because there wasn't such a thing as an R2, but there was a misunderstanding, not realizing that also I think in R1 you could still have that, and as long as it was attached, you could have a suite if it was attached to a building. So it was even suggested that Justin go and apply for the R2 after, like to have that policy inaugurated, because it wasn't in yet. So we've been misled in some ways, that's all, or misunderstood, however you want to put it.
Councillor Massey?
I just want to be clear, misled by who?
Mr. Brooks.
Okay. My question though, Ms. McCabe,
Yes.
and with all due respect, you're a
Yes.
citizen of Portage la Prairie.
Yes.
It doesn't answer why you didn't talk to your neighbors.
Well, they did. Actually, the neighbors liked Justin at first because he helped with, cleaned all the yard, got trees all cleaned up because it hadn't been looked after for a while. And so, yes, they were liked. But I think because being advised as to what to say, so it was like to have a storage, which is, I had no place to put my stuff. And there was a couple of people else in council and stuff that knew what it was going to be right from the beginning, but nothing was so bad. The neighbors, of course, with the understanding that it was storage, of course, then were upset when they saw windows and everything. I understand that, but it was all misleading, and I don't know what to say.
Councillor Massey?
I guess my last question then is this fixable? Is there a way to fix this problem?
Well, that's up to Mr. Rossnagel, ourselves, Mr. Neufeld, and Mr. Judson. And I think that they're so, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Rossnagel, but I think they're so upset with us, period, that it's hard to, like, I mean, if Mr. Rossnagel, if what he doesn't like, can't change the fact that he's been told that it was going to be storage and it's now being applied for a suite. That can't be changed. The variation can be changed that affects him. And I'm happy to be a neighbor, but people have to, like, with Newfelds, I felt so bad. A month ago, I said, Diane was outside, so I just said, Diane, can I speak to you? I said, I can't, I hate this. I can't stand that you not come out in the yard, we don't say good morning, hi, so on. I'd like to be able to talk to you, and it's just not comfortable. It's awful. So, I don't know how else to get so that they would accept me being there. And as I say, I don't think it's not me too. It's just period, and it is caught, and it's something that they're holding on to, and I don't know what else we could do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry for Ms. McCabe.
Got another question here.
Yes.
I guess one of the things, like relationships are one thing to repair,
Yes.
but the issue here at large is the variations. So is there something or workable between you and your neighbors that if this is such a thing that could happen, are you willing to talk to each other? The unfortunate part is the owners are not here. I'm baffled why they are not here, because this is a good time. I mean, this is their, fourth shot at this? And I'm surprised that, that they would not be here, because this can't keep going on. Something has to change here.
Right.
And I don't know what it is. And I'm new here too, and I almost feel that I don't have enough information to make this decision today, because I guess I learned a little bit today about different things that could happen. So I'm going to. We're still talking about the. We're talking about the variation, right?
Variation.
So I would like to table this till September.
We're still public hearing.
Oh,
so,
sorry,
yeah.
I can do that later. Sorry about that. Yep, that's what I'm thinking, because something needs to change.
Well, I'm willing to do whatever.
Well, not just you, because you're the applicant. It should be the owner
Well,
needs to.
I'm speaking on
be
behalf
part
of
of this.
them then, and I know that they are willing to do what.
Well, that's great, Joanne. I hope that works.
Thanks.
Okay.
Can I ask that question?
Yes.
Why are they not here?
It's just been so upsetting as a family and everything, and it's actually physically, mentally been very hard on the family, and so they don't, like, that's one of the reasons he doesn't go to the Lions Club anymore, because people keep saying, did you get your suite approved, and blah, 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 like, you just, it's very hard, so,
Gotcha. Yep.
thanks.
Councillor Meyer.
Sorry, yes, thank you, Your Worship. And Ms. McCabe, just to further add to that, you said you're here speaking on behalf of the owner, and you mentioned that they would be willing to do what needs to be done. What does that mean?
Well, whatever the planning or whatever is suggested that we need to do to be approved.
They would be prepared to take the size of the secondary suite down from 1,000 or 975 square feet to 807 square feet? They would be prepared to move the building 2 feet and 5 feet?
No, I already said that they couldn't
Okay,
possibly
that's what I'm
do
asking.
that.
I'm asking clarification, because what we're dealing with isn't Joanne McCabe living in a secondary suite. We're dealing with a variance against the city bylaw right now.
Right.
So you said they'd be prepared to do whatever is willing to be due, but I understand that that's not correct.
Things that are feasible to do that make sense is what I would say they would be willing to do.
But
You
according,
can't move the building, as I said.
I get that.
Okay,
It's a
let's
quarter
be,
structure. Yep. Okay.
Okay? Yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll ask if anyone else is here to speak in favor of the application. I'll ask, no, we've got some letters to read out in favor.
We have a letter from Brent Fraze and Karen Wolgamuth, to whom it may concern. We are writing in support of this application for a variance. This project has been substantially completed for some time and is an attractive and useful addition to the neighborhood. It is time to set aside objections raised in the past and allow the owners to realize their intentions for the property. It appears that the requested variances are reasonable. The side and rear yard setbacks measured as an average along the skewed boundary line would be closer to compliance with the zoning requirements, and the request for additional size allowance is well within the scale of the existing residence and property. The intended occupancy as a secondary residence fits the trend of encouraging higher density residential building in the central areas of the city. The owners have been patient in considering the objections of their neighbors and deserve to complete and use their property as intended. Brent Fraze and Karen Wolgamuth. And as mentioned earlier, some of the letters referenced both the conditional use and the variation, so they were attached to both files. So there are letters of support that we've already read from Demon, Bazile, Bryson, Cairns, Keeling, Rogers, and Phillips, and Klippenstein, Tibiatowski. So we've already read those, but they also apply to this variation, as well as that list of signatures of support also apply to the variation.
Okay, I'll ask if there's anyone here to speak against the application. Come up to the mic, sir. I just want to lift it closer to you too. A little
You
bit.
bet. Just to
Just
clar-
for Mr.
oh,
Rossnagel, just for clarification.
Leonard Rossnagel, 151 Tupper Street South. Just to clarify a couple of things here. The encroachment is more than a couple of inches. It's actually 0.6 feet, so, you know. And so we're, eavesdrops, I don't know, 6 inches, so unfortunately it was more than that. And we have never been approached with any sort of remedy to address this encroachment. It's been ignored. We actually well, that was in the days when it was still perhaps going to be a garage with storage. And we actually were looking at granting an easement, but we had no reply to that whatsoever. So that is untrue. And in terms of communication, I haven't had any civil communication with Justin McCabe for some years. A little personal. Here I walk around the park most mornings with my dog, and I say hello to people, and most of them say hello back. Mrs. McCabe does not, and so I don't bother saying good morning anymore, and that, I don't like that.
Okay.
So, there you go.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Rossnagel? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll ask if anyone else is here to speak against the application. Do we have letters?
No new ones, but again, there was 2 letters that have already been read that apply to this variation that also applied to the conditional use. So those are from Carlson, Judson, and Brands and Collier.
Thank you. Ms. McCabe, you do have the opportunity if you had anything else. No? Okay. Okay.
That's fine.
Thank you. Excellent. Anything else from council before we close? Ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Worship. Be it resolved, and I so move that the public hearing for variation PC 4224, McCabe, 102 First Street Southwest, now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. Questions or comments from council? Councillor Porter?
Is this where I can?
Table this?
Yeah, you can make a
Okay.
motion to
Yes.
table with the date. Oh, no. Sorry,
Oh,
all those in
wait.
favor? Closing, sorry. We're gonna move on to Councillor Meyer now. I apologize, everybody.
Thank you, Your Worship. In front of you, from the Planning and Economic Development Committee for Joanne McCabe and Justin and Andrea McCabe, 102 First Street Southwest. And of course, Council, as you're aware, this of course is tied within the conditional use from the previous report. So because that one was approved, we're moving on to this one, and the issue is a variance only. To vary the following secondary suite maximum size of 75 square meters to be increased to 90.67 square meters. The issue is to also secondary suite rear yard requirement, which should be 1.5 meters to be reduced down to 5.5 or 0.55 meters. And a secondary suite south side yard requirement of 1.5 meters to be reduced to 1.3 meters. Alternatives to approve, of course, or deny the variation applications. The background, which you have heard about extensively up to now. The owners would like to create a secondary suite for their for their mother to live in. Owners have applied for a similar variance request in September 2019, December 2020, and March 2022. The PC minutes are there for your reference, but withdrew them as the conditional use was denied. The owner has since disconnected all plumbing, drain, and water lines, had fire-rated shutters on the east and south side windows installed, and no one has been living in the space since. If this application is approved, the applicant would be required to provide plans and information showing what second floor use is to be and how it is constructed. A building and plumbing permit would then be required. For your information, Council, this isn't an R1 residential single-family zone. Thus, Y is here today as a result of the second suite bylaw number 198696 passed in 2019. The application has been circulated to the various city departments with a concern that the rear and side yard variations will have the building too close to neighboring properties, which has been protested by these property owners in the past. As you can see, we've received multiple letters of support, including a petition and many objections for this application as well. Public notice has been sent to all property owners within a 100-meter radius. So it's the administrative recommendation, and I so move, that the council of the city of Portage la Prairie approve the variation request of Joanne McCabe to vary the following. Secondary suite maximum size is 75 square meters to be increased to 90.67 square meters. Secondary suite yard requirement of 1.5 meters to be reduced to 0.55 meters. And secondary suite south side yard requirement of 1.5 meters to be reduced to 1.03 meters. At the property known as 102 First Street Southwest, which is legally described as Lot 3, Block 1, Plan 1988 in the parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. Now is the time.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to table this application till the first meeting in September.
September
Council.
11th. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Nichols? Any debate on the date? All those in favor? Opposed? And that's defeated. Questions or comments on this?
Thank you, Your Worship. Once again, speaking from my chair of council, it is something that I think we should and could deal with tonight, or obviously are dealing with tonight. The issue that I have, and again, I just want to be clear in two areas again. One is that I am a property owner within a 100-meter radius and obviously had received the request for variation as well. Any of my biases tonight are based not on my own personal, but for the overview of council. Secondly, this is not about Joanne McCabe. I'm empathetic to her situation. I understand the place is great. What I do have an issue with is the request for the variance. Once again, and I'll repeat myself, if this had been addressed before the construction of the secondary suite, this wouldn't be a conversation. Issue I have is that if we're taking a secondary suite bylaw, we put that in play with some very specific reasons. Council, it is a conditional use, so council does have the chance to override some of those things dependent and based on the circumstances. In this case here, I cannot support it. Right now, we're talking a maximum size suite of 807 square feet is where the bylaw reads, and it wants to be increased to 975 square feet. Again, I don't want a secondary suite bylaw to be used to circumvent an R2 process. Even if it fits within, it says here, not to confuse the issue, but all sites on which a secondary suite is to be located must have a minimum site area of 464 square meters. It does fit within that. But the point being, it's still way out large, and I'm afraid of setting a precedent that we can't go back on at some point in time in the future. Secondary yard requirement of 5 feet to be reduced to 2 feet. And the third part that I have an issue with is the secondary suite south side yard requirement, which again is 5 feet, reduced down to 3 feet. With that said, as much as I am empathetic to the situation, I cannot support the variances allowed on this based on the secondary suite application. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. I have a question for planning, and this has definitely come from the conversation tonight from the applicants. And so some of it was that there could have been things done to change some of these variation requirements. There could have been, so that when the applicant was applying, they didn't have to have these variations. Is that true? Like, do you think that could have happened?
In all honesty, I can't speak to that. I wasn't part of the original process.
Yeah.
The only thing I can speak to is how I see it fits at this time. A and C, I've seen the city approve variances such in those parameters before a lot of the times. Point B, 1.5 to 0.55 is low. Where is it where the original structure was? Yes, it was when I read the original survey. As far as information, as far as eave trough or overhang, what is encroaching the property and what isn't at this point on the rear side, the eave trough is encroaching the property, and that is the only thing based on the survey that's current, and it states that on the survey. Is there ways to rectify that? Absolutely. Is it still a variance to a shorter degree? I suppose. I'm not speaking in favor or against or anything. It's not my position. I'm just giving random facts neutrally here. So that's kind of where that sits.
But since you've been involved with the file, there hasn't been, like, the applicant or homeowner hasn't come to say, how can we
No.
make changes? Okay, that
No,
answers,
so
yeah.
since I've been here, in this position, this is the first I've heard of the application, is when it first came in. What happened with, I can't speak to how the person that conducted this application spoke with the applicant.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get into that because I wasn't part of that. I only know what's on paper with this.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, I just find it interesting that there's been discussion as that there has been ways and that maybe some of that stuff could have been worked out before we got here. Okay. Councillor Doyle?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Your Worship to Mr. Gessel, just for crystal clear clarity, you can confirm based on the most recent survey that there is an encroachment on the neighbor's property?
There is an eaves trough encroachment,
An
which
eaves trough
states
encroachment.
right on there, eaves trough. So that could be 6 inches, it could be 3 inches, depending on what size the eaves trough is. And I assume it's 5 or 6.
Okay, and also, can you confirm which corners of the footprint of the original building match up with the new building?
The rear corner, from what I saw, the 0.55 matches up to the old one, and along the other side does, moving towards the 1.3. From what I noticed on the original survey when I looked through it this morning.
Okay, and one more question. You said if this was a garage only, we wouldn't be talking about this at council, correct?
If this was a detached garage on anybody's property, we would not even be bringing this to council based on those measurements.
Thank you.
Anyone? Councillor Nichols?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the planning, you've, and the reason that I was supporting the tabling was so that I could gather more information. I haven't had a real clear view of chance. I know that there's been drawings that are similar to that don't provide the concept that I need to see for, in terms of sizing and scale to scale. But you say that there is that drawing that has been done recently that was provided by.
There is a current drawing, the current survey, which is on file, and there is the original survey from what I noticed from the previous owners.
Thank you. And further to that, we've talked about remedy or changing and I mean, that starts with a conversation that I think that needs to happen here in order, if this variance is defeated, when can they reapply? Through to administration, please.
Mr. Gessel?
Based on previous applications, it's always been noted 1 year for reapplication.
Okay.
We don't have the right to deny an application if somebody wants to apply, but they do have a time frame they would have to wait.
Thank you.
Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Your Worship. Once again, this is a very difficult issue, but I cannot support the variances. This planning to me, and we can talk about the ins and outs, and Councillor Meyer outlined a lot of the things that have to be done, but it starts with a conversation. And planning starts with respecting your neighbors. We are a good city. We're not people that want to fight. And we've got so much good happening in our city. Council has a great plans for our future, but we have to move on from this one. But it starts with a conversation. And I just cannot support variances. This was done bad from the beginning, and it multiplied badly all the way through. And I want to see, by turning the variances down, I want to see a plan come back with the neighbors, and that we can then have a better meeting to say this is now good for all of us. This is 5 years. I've been on council almost 2 years. We need to find a way to deal with this, but I cannot support approving the variance. I want to see a conversation. I want to see a plan, and I want to see it brought back if that's the will. But talk to the neighbors.
Councillor Porter?
I'd just like to let you know, I totally agree with Councillor Massey. The best way to get the right way or to get what you want is by talking with your neighbors and coming to some kind of resolution between you. And because I can't support this, knowing that, you know, that you guys haven't made those steps to get together, to come and like, you want the balcony, you want to be able to live there, and I think it's a great thing, and I don't think any of the neighbors think that you living there is the bad thing. I think what's bothering them the most is the variations. It's not the fact that you are you want to where is it here? It's not the fact that you want the conditional use to live there. It's the fact that you're just not following the variations. And if you can do that and get away with it, everybody else is going to try the same thing, and then we're going to have all kinds of problems in the city. So, thank you.
Councillor Doyle, did you change your mind?
Well, I guess, thank you, Your Worship. I just want to say this is an attractive building. It's a useful building. It's built to fit the neighborhood as far as the aesthetics from it. But there's a process to be followed, and we cannot do things now and ask for forgiveness later. And if this is 5 or 6 years in the making, as Ms. McCabe had alluded to, I don't know why there hasn't been, like Councillor Massey said, a plan in place to make this right. And I understand some of the things that need to be done to make it right are very, very major, but they could be very minor if you start at the ground up. So I will not be supporting this application, but I would suggest that everyone get together and come up with a plan within your neighborhood, something that makes sense for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Worship. I echo my colleagues' comments here. I think that it is a beautiful structure, and I think that, you know, working together and coming up with a look through these variations and see what we can come up with, that, you know, work together to, and with planning when you need it, and maybe there's a resourceful solution that will put the neighborhood back into place, and that I so wish. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. Yeah, my comment too is that I just can't support these variations. And I do want, because this has been on many agendas, and I just want to make the note of, because this is a small community and people talk, and I am very sympathetic to the applicant's situation. I really am, and I wish that this was a easy thing to do. It's a bad situation that just went bad, and we have to respect the process, and we have to respect what we have in place in this community, and I just can't support these variations. I agree with everybody, is I wish that there had been communication from the beginning with neighbors and figuring out a way to work this through. Maybe someday there will be, but at this point, it's got to be up to the homeowners and the neighbors to do that. Any questions or any more? All those in favor? All those opposed? And that is defeated. I am going to ask administration if you, because this I'm just going to say this goes on, and correspondence starts, and I'm going to say correspondence to my email starts, and so I'm going to ask administration if they please write a letter to the homeowners who are not present today as to the reason why council defeated this and didn't approve this variation, to make it clear so everybody knows going forward what has happened here. Okay, if that's okay with council? Yeah, okay. Okay, we are going to open public hearing, request for conditional use PC 43-24, 102034459 Manitoba and 3346200 Manitoba. Unit 4, 2352 Sissons Drive. I'll ask if anybody is here to speak in favor of this application. You know, come on up, you probably understand. Sure.
Business partners.
Yeah, sure. When you get here, you just have to state your name for the record. Name's
Thank you, Your Worship. City Council members, my name is Josh Black. This is my business partner, Riley Allery. We are applying for a conditional use in hopes to bring a golf simulation facility to Portage la Prairie. Last week I sent out an email and I'm hoping everybody got a chance to read it.
I did not receive an email.
No, sorry, I sent an email to Mr. City Manager. If it, no worries if it didn't get out.
This will all come up now.
Oh, okay. My apologies.
Don't you worry. Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I speak better in front of staff than I do in front of, so I thought I'd write a letter and just kind of state my my case that way. Yeah, we're hoping to bring some entertainment to Portage la Prairie, and hope you will consider that.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions for the applicants? We will have Ms. Van Aert read the letter out, please.
I appreciate that. Oh, great.
Sorry, we don't normally send it to council before a hearing. That it should be read now, I guess.
Sounds good, yeah.
So the letter said, "Dear City Council members, my name is Josh Black. I, with my business partner Riley Allery, are applying for a conditional use for amusement enterprise at the upcoming City Council meeting on August 12th. This application is for Unit 4, 2352 Sissons Drive. With the approval of City Council, we plan on bringing golf simulation and virtual reality entertainment to the City of Portage la Prairie. I would like to share a little about ourselves. I moved to Portage la Prairie approximately 13 years ago when I bought into and managed the local A&W. I am proud of the work I did and decided to sell it this past December. I love the City of Portage la Prairie and plan on being part of the community as I make it my forever home. Riley was born in Portage la Prairie. I first met him when he was 15 years old when he began working for me at A&W. We have kept in touch ever since. Riley brought me the idea to bring the business of golf simulation to the City of Portage la Prairie earlier this year. As a golfer, I felt it could be a good business opportunity, and we have been working towards the idea ever since. We are currently in the final stages of starting this business, and with the City Council's approval, we will be excited to bring golf simulation and virtual reality entertainment to our city. We will both be attending the City Council meeting for any questions you may have for us. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions for the applicants following that? Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship, and of course to Josh and to your partner there, Mr. Allery. First of all, congratulations on the entrepreneurship, and I think as council we certainly like to see different ventures that like to settle in our city, and I certainly wish you all the best, assuming it gets approved. The only question I do have for you is, in addition to the indoor golf simulator and what was the other word? Reality?
Virtual reality simulation.
The virtual reality?
Yeah, virtual reality simulation.
Got it. Can you just explain a little bit more of what you're really or what else you're intending to do within that, that location, or is it just those two items?
Absolutely. In our investigations of bringing the business into the city, we have contacted and been in touch with many owners in Winnipeg and in other provinces. We found that the business is obviously a very slow business in the summer as people are golfing outdoors, and our thoughts are trying to bring other virtual reality entertainment to kind of help with the summer. We are absolutely a golf simulation first. Some of the thoughts, and we're still investigating, is looking into other concepts that can go on the screen, as well as the possibility of an idea of like a PlayStation 5 virtual headset car racing, and the games that PlayStation supply. We haven't come to full conclusions of what we are going to bring and what we're not yet. But we're trying to make so we can hopefully maybe not lose money in the summer, which is the case for virtual reality simulations, golf simulations.
Thank you.
Councillor,
Oh,
are you done?
sorry, I wasn't quite done. Just,
Oh,
sorry,
go
just
ahead.
one other quick question. Thank you. And of course, I'm not very much for golf, so I don't really get it.
Yeah, I don't know what the interest is here.
But that said, I guess, would it extend into your typical arcade games, your pinball machines and the like? Is that really the intent as well in addition
Not at
to
all.
what you're doing now? Okay.
Maybe in the future, if the business is successful, we've talked about the possibility of expanding, but not now. It's more about what can be done with the golf simulator and in the possibility of in the bay themselves. When I talk about car racing, the idea is maybe for the driver to put the headset on, obviously being there with friends, and the friends being able to see on the screen what the driver's doing, and making it, we can't have everybody in the racing at the same time, but we thought that idea of getting it on the screen wouldn't be difficult, and your friends would be able to, see how you're driving and cheer you on or not.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Doyle?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Your Worship to the presenter, thank you, Mr. Black. Thank you, Mr. Allaire, for sitting and waiting for your opportunity to speak. I like the idea of bringing more entertainment to our city. I think it's good winter, fall, summer, spring, any time of the year to have more activities to do in our city. So I just had a question about, would you be looking at potentially having or obtaining a liquor license within the facility?
Yes, we will have a liquor license. We plan on just going with canned alcoholic beverages and not having pourable ryes. They have things like that. So we're going with just cans to make it easy. We planning on serving just chips and snacks and stuff like that. And I do have a no-compete clause that I have to figure out with A&W. Our plan is hopefully to be allowed to skip the dishes or something like that, a delivery service to come in. I don't want to be involved with the restaurant or kitchen anymore. I decided I've had, 12 years was enough for me. In the future, after that clause is gone, the hopes is actually to truly partner up with local restaurants and maybe create a menu with local delivery, more than just skip the dishes, pair up with local restaurants and maybe create a menu in the future.
Perfect, thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Nichols?
Thank you, and thank you for your patience here this evening and this presentation that you've got in front of us. I think it's going to be wonderful for the city of Portage and your future. I'm looking at supporting this. I think that's great, and Councillor Meyer does need to work on his backswing a little bit, so this will give him an opportunity to work on that. And I need to work on all of them. So I'm looking forward to this, and thank you for being here this evening. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Any other questions for the applicants?
I almost choked on that backswing comment.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll ask if anyone else is here to speak in favor of the application. Anyone here to speak against the application? Anyone here to speak against the application? Any letters to be read out? Nothing. If nothing else from council, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Your Worship. Be it resolved, and I so move that the public hearing for conditional use PC 43-24 for 1020345 Manitoba Limited and 3346200 Manitoba Limited, Unit 4, 2352 Systems Drive, now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. All those in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. In front of you, Council, you'll have the report to Council in addition to a map of where this location is perceived. And of course, the issue is just to allow for amusement enterprise indoor in a C3 Avenue commercial zone. The background, 102-03459 Manitoba Limited and 3346200 Manitoba Limited have applied for conditional use to allow for amusement enterprise indoor in a C3 Avenue commercial zone, as they would like to open an indoor golf simulator in addition to the other enemies that they described. The application was circulated to the various city departments. There have been no concerns. Public notices have been sent to all property owners within a 100-meter radius, and as you can see, there have been no objections. With that said, it's the administrative recommendation, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the conditional use application of 102-03459 Manitoba Limited to allow for amusement enterprise indoor in a C3 Avenue commercial zone at the property Unit 4, 2352 Sisters Drive, which is legally described as Lot N and Q, Plan 45309 in the parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Meyer, seconded by Councillor Nichols. Any questions or comments from council? My comment is that I'm a golfer and I love to golf and have golfed very little since I've been on council. So maybe in the winter I'll practice that here at the and I think the virtual reality is a great addition to it as well, especially for summertime. So I will definitely be in favor of this. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. We're just gonna recess for about 5 minutes here to give everybody a little break, and we'll reconvene in 5. Okay, we will re-adjourn this council meeting at 8:36 p.m. Sorry, I gotta figure out where I am. We're gonna go into Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Worship. Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee has no report at this point in the meeting.
City Planning and Economic Development, Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. City Planning and Economic Development Committee has nothing more to add at this point.
Community Services Committee, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Community Services Committee has nothing to add at this portion of the meeting.
Thank you. Waterworks Committee, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Your Worship. Waterworks Committee has nothing at this point of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Transportation Committee, Councillor Porter.
Transportation has nothing to report, Your Worship, except just to have one comment that it's approximately 2 weeks away from paving.
Yeah, perfect. Public Safety Committee, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Public Safety Committee has nothing to report in this portion of the meeting.
Thank you. We have no deferred business. We'll move right into new business. We have award tender for janitorial services, Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship and colleagues. This evening, we are, in your package, you have the report to Council dealing with the awarding of our tender to supply janitorial services for our city. As you know, the tender for the supply of janitorial services includes daily cleaning and quarterly window washing and semi-annual floor treatments. This is a 2-year contract from September 1, 2024 to August 31, 2026, and includes the following offices: the Operations Office, our City Hall, Water Treatment Plant, Water Pollution Control Facility, Library, and the Utility Maintenance Office. We issued the tender on June 18th and was advertised on the city's webpage and on the MERCs. We had 14 tender packages were requested, and 2 companies submitted bids. And the bids were evaluated based on qualifications, ability to perform the work, past experiences, and sustainability and pricing. And the scores, as you see, we had Triple V Building Maintenance Limited, a price of $205,212 for 94.91 points. And the other tender was 4199651 Manitoba Limited, OAA Taylor Janitorial, of $205,576.56 for 91.74 points. Triple V Building Maintenance has provided cleaning services under the same contract for the last 2 years and have done a good job, and I think that's really important. I think we all want our offices clean and looking very professional, so that's good to hear. Based on the submitted price, the annual cost is $97,720 per year net of GST plus CPI in year 2. This is a slight increase for the remainder of 2024, but is not anticipated to be significant for any one department. Each city facility has its own budget for this work, and any cost changes will be accounted for when preparing the annual operating budget. So the administrative recommendation, and I would move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie award the tender for the supply of janitorial services 24 OPS 026 to Triple V Building Maintenance Limited for the tendered price of $195,440 net of GST. I would move that, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments on that? Councillor Massey?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Just, I have no problem with the recommendation, and it's good. I just want to, can you, administration, provide maybe a little commentary? The bids were close, but as I understand, there was some more hours provided by the company that won the bid. Is that correct? Was the big difference in the price?
Through your worship to Councillor Massey, I'll ask Ms. Friesen to speak to the evaluation of the bid.
The tender package provides what we recommend the minimum number of hours to clean each facility. The Triple V provided basically their quote based on that same number of hours. The other company submitted less hours, but for the price that you see there, so that did impact our evaluation. Kind of felt potentially less service for the same amount or for more money. But that was just one of the considerations.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Nothing else? All those in favor? And that is carried. Another item of new business, second quarter financial statements. Finance, Legislative and Property Committee, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Word.
I did.
Thank you.
Sorry, I voted.
Are we into another hearing here? All right, the next item, of course, is the 2024 quarter 2 financial statements and projected year-end balances. And this is always very important for council to see how we are doing financially. So the issue here is to approve the 2024 quarter 2 financial statements and review the information provided for projected year-end balances. So the analysis shows the fiscal year, the city's fiscal year is the calendar year with quarters ending March 31, June 30th, and September 30th, and December 31. Administration provides detailed financial statements to City Council on a quarterly basis, beginning in the second quarter for their approval. The Finance Department gathers information from all management responsibilities for financial results in their areas regarding projected year-end balances and variances. And I'm not going to go through all the different items there. You've had that and you've seen the difference. I do want to point out the largest one, of course, was the RCMP billing. It was definitely under budget, that it came in at a very significant cost, less cost, and that was a big part of the difference you see in your package. But I'm not going to go through the other changes. They are there for your information. But that was the main, or the RCMP cost billing. And I have a question for administration after my report. So I would move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the 2024 quarter 2 financial statements as presented.
Moved by Councillor Massey, seconded by Councillor Meyer. Councillor Massey?
Yeah, just a question, Your Worship, and I know it's shown as RCMP reconciliation. Would administration just give, for the benefit of all the council, just an explanation of what that means and how sometimes the number comes in less than budgeted?
Through your worship to Councillor Massey. So in terms of reconciliation, you have to remember the federal year is different than our calendar year in which municipalities work on. So at the end of March, essentially the billing period ends from the previous year, 2023 into 2024. We are billed quarterly. They estimate the cost for our RCMP services and then send us equal bills quarterly through that period. As we are getting to the last quarter, which we've just gone past, they indicated that we would have a $600,000 allowance given back to us. Why that type of variation could happen is a number of reasons, but it's almost exclusively related to staff. There is either unfilled positions, but we do have the advantage under the RCP contract if members go on parental leave, if they are on sick leave, or if they are removed from duty for any number of reasons, they are removed from our billing considerations. So if they were our employees, we would absorb those costs. But because they're federal employees, they go back onto the federal payment system, and they're removed from our contract services. So if you have unfilled positions or any of the other reasons I mentioned, we aren't charged that, and then it's corrected as a year-end bounce. This is a large one, I would say, and we are trying to work as best we can to anticipate these so we don't overcharge what we need to do to provide the services that we are paying for.
Thank you. That was a very good explanation. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on those? All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, we have another item of new business, our June building reports. City Planning and Economic Development, Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Worship. And again, you know that this is probably one of my favorite parts of the month, where we always talk about shovel to ground is the easiest way to say it. Council, in front of you, you'll have the report from the city. You'll also have the report from the rural. But I do draw your attention to the combined, because we always talk about it as a regional planning district. So just in brief, you will notice that the permits are actually down as a total, up in some areas. Residential permits are up, values are up considerably. I do want you to pay attention a little bit to the repair, which really kind of is nice. It shows you that people are putting dollars and renovations and everything else back into their homes. So it's just really good to see. Commercial, you'll see that the permits may be down a little bit as well. I mean, that's certainly expected with the amount of commercial enterprise that we had over the last number of years. Industrial is pretty flat, stable year over year. Obviously no new permits, but the repair is up as well. So again, it's good to see in industry, commercial, residential put money back into their physical property. Institutional, of course, you'll see the one for $247 million. We know that's related to the hospital. They will eventually stop, but I think it's pretty good as it's progressing at this point as well. And once again, you'll see that repair is up as well. Other than that, nothing really to point out other than maybe permits are down, but of course the value is significantly up over year. So once again, I just really want to say thank you, obviously, to not only the planning district, the work effort that they put into it. It takes a lot of work to put that much throughout the year, in addition to our PRED administration and all of the other departments that work in order for economic development within our community. So if there's no questions, that's all I have to add.
Any questions for Councillor Meyer? Thank you. Okay, we are going to move into another item of new business, award tender for water pollution control facility control system upgrade. Waterworks Committee, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Worship. Council, what you have in front of you is a report to Council, and the issue is to award the contract for automated control system upgrade at the water pollution control facility, or will be referred to WPCF as we go forward, as specified in tender 24 OPS 030. So we can look at awarding this contract for the control system upgrade to Trotter and Morton Industrial Contracting, or do not award the contract. And also, a tender was issued for the upgrade of the automated control system, programmable logic controllers, PLC, and supervisory control and data acquisition, SCADA, systems for the water pollution control facility on June 17, 2024, on the Merck's online tendering service. This work includes replacing the existing obsolete and failing PLC components at each of the various WPCF buildings and the overall SCADA control system with new hardware and programming and installation of new communication fiber optic cable in a buried conduit. The new control system hardware can be incorporated into a future upgrade and expansion of the wastewater treatment system. Substantial completion to be achieved by March 28, 2025. And total performance of the work is to be achieved by May 16, 2025. The tender closed on July 23, 2024, and 3 proposals were received. The submissions were evaluated based on qualifications of the company and personnel and ability to perform the work, proposed methodology to complete the work, the previous experience with the city, and substantial factors. Submissions had to achieve a minimum technical point rating of 40 out of a total 65 points. One proposal did not achieve the minimum threshold, and they were disqualified before the bid pricing was reviewed. The price submissions of the qualifying proposals were then evaluated. The points were awarded as follows. Trotter and Morton, 97.61 out of 100. Abco Supply and Service Limited, 85.05. And you can see the prices there. There was very good pricing. Based on the technical and pricing evaluation criteria, Trotter and Morton achieved the highest score. They have conducted other significant similar work projects in the city at the water treatment plant. The primary subcontractors also have significant experience working on various projects in the city, notably at the water pollution control facility and water treatment plant both. Approval has been received to incorporate this work into the WPCF upgrade project with Investing in Canada Infrastructure Plan, so ICIP funding. The city's share of costs will be 26.67% of $283,040.56. The 2024 utility budget has $650,000 allocated for the upgrade of the WPCF control system, with $173,355 coming from the nutrient removal reserve, and also $476,645 from the ICIP grant funding. There's an additional $3.9 million combined city and ICIP funds available in the 2024 budget for the water pollution control facility phase 2 upgrades, leaving sufficient funds for the remaining $411,270, and the city share would be $109,686 of that required to complete this work. So it is the administrative recommendation, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie accept the proposal and award the contract for the WPCF control system upgrade as specified in Tender 24 OPS 030 to Trotter and Morton Industrial Contracting for $1,061,269.43 net of GST. I so move.
Moved by Councillor Nichols, seconded by Councillor Porter. Any questions or comments on that, Council? No? Excellent report. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, we have another item of new business, the Water Pollution Control Facility upgrading status. For information only, from Waterworks Committee, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, what you have in here is, and provided to us from administration, is the WPCF upgrading status and where we are today. There's been some good work done. And we continue to go through this, but this report identifies where we are today, where we need to be, and some of the backstops and the securities in terms of financials that we need. I ask you to review this report. There's a lot of good information in it, and if I was to highlight some of the important pieces of it, like the early works, for example, as permitted under the interim contribution agreement under the investing, so again, the ICIP, and approved by Manitoba Strategic Initiatives and Alternative Delivery. Some of the work that we've done in the early works are in progress. These include the WPCF office roof renewal that we went ahead and we worked with that, and the office HVAC replacement, and the PLC and automated control communication system upgrade and replacement. So we were able to do, and we've done some really good work in terms of the earlier works. But as you go through it, you're going to see, and you know, it's a wonderful report. It explains where we are today in terms of, and some of the backstops and there's some initiatives we need to do to get forward, to move on, and where we need to be. I challenge you to, and if you've got any questions at all, you can ask me, and I'll ask Ms. Friesen exactly where it is that we are at. But this report, there's been no further development of the draft industrial service agreements for each of these three industries, McCain Food, NutriP, LLP, and Roquette. However, without knowing the final implementations of the strategy, these cannot be finalized for the long term. So I ask you to take the time to read this report, and some of the tasks over the next several months will include implementing the approved early works, and we're going to get that done, roof HVAC control system, assessing the needs for additional early works, application to SIAD province for approval of additional early works, discussion with Canada Infrastructure Bank regarding the financing of the city's share of the project, if their discussions with the province are positive. And there's a number of bullet items. I'm not going to get into them in their entirety, but I ask that you read through this. There's some very good information here. And we can, if you got questions, please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pito?
Thank you, Your Worship. If I can add a comment that when these reports are presented to council, we also track this on our website. There's several major projects, Saskatchewan Avenue being one of them, this being another, where the public can track the progress on the project through quarterly updates, just to keep the public, especially when we have multi-year capital infrastructure projects, allow them to stay up to date on our progress on these files.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Worship, and I agree with Councillor Nichols. A very good report. I love this take tasks over the next several months. It lays it right out what we need. The one that really does concern me, though, and I maybe through Councillor Nichols to our city manager, is the discussion regarding the financial backstop and some of those discussions. And I know at this point we have not received any sort of signal that they're going to do that. Is there any plans to, maybe between the mayor and yourself, to elevate that issue a little more now in the next number of months?
Mr. Pito?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Massey, we do have a new government provincially. The letter has been sent to the Premier's office and has been tasked to the Minister of Municipal Affairs. As you're aware, we had a good discussion with several cabinet ministers on this issue, and they continue to listen. But we haven't had any significant progress over the last 6 months, I would say is accurate. I think it's probably time that we readdress that through the administrative capacity and the political capacity through council. So I'm sure the mayor and I will continue to work with our partners in government to try and advance that argument.
Thank you. Okay. We are going to move on to new business, our quarterly reports. First of all, I would just like to say these reports come along with some of our amazing staff members throughout the city, and I just want to say thank you all for taking the time to be here this long in the evening. So, City Planning and Economic Development second quarter reports. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. PRED, or as we know it, Portage Regional Economic Development, is a regional organization, and I'd like to invite up our Director of Economic Development, Ms. Eva Leary, to go through the highlights and the details of the report.
You can stay there if
you can actually stay there.
Can you hear me okay?
Can't hear you. You need to turn green.
It is green.
It's probably not.
Can you hear me now?
No. There we go.
Thank you. Good evening, Council, and really appreciate being here to report on quarter two. So really appreciate having the opportunity to promote the work of PRED and our team and the regional approach, and we're very excited to share some amazing things that happened in quarter two. So really looking at it from a holistic view, as you know, in quarter one, we really focused on being proactive with business retention and expansion, tourism, data collection, and then providing new services from the Economic Development Department. So you can click on quarter one just to remind you of all the amazing work that our team has focused on for quarter one. So for quarter two, we shifted our focus to align with our strategic plan, so to focus on continued investment attraction, building upon our data services, and the release of our new economic development strategic plan and the implementation of best practices that really align with our vision as a regional entity. Additionally, this quarter we focused on continuing business retention and expansion, so really by collaborating with various local businesses who are at different stages of their life cycle. So maybe they're focused on expansion or succession planning, wanting to open a business, or other services of navigation that they may require from PRED. Quarter two was also a great soul-searching mission for PRED, as we really identified what the tangible services were, who PRED is, what we do, and what are the physical things that we provide, not just to the community, but to our business owners. So we had done a 10-week marketing campaign with PRED as well, and that was very beneficial, which we will find as a good exercise for years to come. And then we also were very fortunate in May 2024 to host the EDAM Forum, so thank you again to Council for the support for that. And it was wonderful to showcase some of our region's economic development assets towards a lot of people who do economic development across the province. So looking ahead to Q3, our focus is on projects. So we have a lot of projects that we are now finalising, some studies, and then continuing to market our industrial parks. And then in Q4, we're really going to be continuing that proactive approach to business retention and expansion. Some exciting projects coming up, such as Developers Day, that we're very excited to have hosted here in our region. In August, we're working with the province of Manitoba to focus on the Ag department. We're focused with the Chamber of Commerce to promote Portage la Prairie as a destination for economic development with their tour. So lots of tours and promotion for the next couple of weeks, and it's a great opportunity to promote and showcase our community. I won't go through the rest of the report for Council, but we'll take questions. It does give interactive links to our studies and more information if you need that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. O'Leary? My comment is I just like the new look of the report too. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Your Worship. I just want to say certainly to Eve and to your team, it's no secret how instrumental you are into the future planning of Portage la Prairie, along with all of our other regional stakeholders and everybody else involved. So a really good job, and I certainly appreciate the report, and it doesn't go unnoticed. And the look of it is quite impressive as well. Really showcases the city. Okay, second part. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our Tourism Coordinator, Ms. Kelly Verway, for our Tourism Committee report, which we also know is another instrumental piece of the puzzle in relationship to our city. So, Ms. Verway?
Okay, thank you for having me here tonight. Having me here for all of it, I guess I should say. No, seriously, thank you for having me. It's always great to talk about tourism. So yeah, I'm here to talk about Q2 and what the Tourism Committee has been up to. I should say, Preston did introduce me, but I am Kelly Verway. I've been with the Tourism Committee now as a coordinator for a year and a quarter, but I was previously with PRED, so yeah, great to be continuing on with tourism. I will skip through some of the report. I trust that all of you did receive it and will have the opportunity to go through it. So if we could go to the next page. I like to kind of do these presentations based off of the goals, because to me, unless we're following what we outlined at the beginning, we're probably not going to have much success. So just to kind of tie some of the things that we completed in Q2 to the 2024 goals that we set out at the beginning of the year. So number 2 was to review brand guidelines and consider integration of Visit Portage. So back in Q1, we made the change to discover Portage la Prairie on our social media. And in Q2, we have now started to update our website. So the website's not live, but we are going through and updating all of the content on the website, new images, and once that's all done, the address will be changed to Discover Portage la Prairie to match all of our other branding, I guess I'll say. So that's been great. The website update was well overdue. So once that goes live, I'll be sending out a link to everybody to take a look. But I will say it looks great so far. There's a much more modern feel to it. We've really prioritized images and visual content. So I'm excited to see and to show it to everybody once it's ready. The second goal that I will look to for quarter two is to increase sponsorship of local assets and events. So I will say sponsorship is one part of it, but I think just partnerships in general is what we wanted to be focusing on. So in quarter two, we did have a local resident reach out looking for some partnership in promoting the Concert in the Park series, as well as other free or affordable entertainment that will be taking place throughout our region in the summer months. So in quarter two, I was able to assist with that in making promotional assets for them to use in promoting Concerts in the Park, and then did our own promotion of regional events that included things like the Portage St. Ambrose Beach. So yeah, really took a regional approach to that, and I think that aligned well with things the city is looking at too in terms of socio-economic impact and making sure our city is our region is a really inclusive space. So if people don't know about the events, they won't be successful. Goal number 6 was to further develop visitor resources, and in quarter 2 we finally finished our kiosk project. So there are now kiosks at both Island Park and Fort La Prairie Museum. The purpose of these kiosks is to have information available when our tourism centers aren't open, and those are now completely populated. So they have dining, accommodations, camping, and large city and RM maps available on them, which we had heard time and time again, the maps were a real gap in our resources. So it's nice to have those, and I did speak with Emma from the museum over the weekend, and she said that she's seen lots of people stopping at the center and using the kiosks. So that's reassuring to hear. I think at this point I will just open it up for questions. The information is in the report. You guys can contact me as well, but I think it's more important that you're able to ask me questions now.
Sure. Does anybody have questions? Councillor Meyer?
Sorry, just one question. Just for clarification, where can everybody get the Portage la Prairie hoodies, sweaters, those
The
kind of
merchandise?
things? The merchandise, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah, the merchandise is available at Fort La Prairie Museum has been fully restocked, Stride Place has been fully restocked, and Southport Recplex does have a limited supply.
Excellent. I just have a comment, is when you talk about their regional music event promotion, I had a message on the weekend of people who were asking if I was at the Roadhammers, and they're from Shoal Lake, and they asked, and I wasn't there, but they asked, I said, how did you hear about it? They saw my share of your discovery page on social media, and so ended up here. So
perfect. No, that's excellent to hear, and I thank you for your support, Sherilyn. You're always sharing the content that we're putting out, so we do appreciate that.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Just on the tourism note, we should mention the Murder at the Museum at Fort La Prairie coming up this week. Tickets still available?
Yeah, tickets are available, however limited. They sold out Wednesday, and today's was an late afternoon, but there is still limited tickets on Friday.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for waiting.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys.
Nothing else, Councillor Meyer?
Nope, that's everything. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Great, we'll move into Community Services Committee. Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Now, please bear with me. I'm filling in for my colleague, Councillor Espy here, so I hope I get all this right. First report I have is from PCRC, and I would like to call up Ms. Geisel. Just call up to the table, not to the podium. You're fine there.
Thank you very much for having me. I also am filling in for Mary, our excellent executive director. So I am assuming that she shared the report with you, and I'm just going to touch on the highlights that she provided to me. In the second quarter, PCRC has been really busy. We've been involved in several community events and celebrations, including Anti-Racism Week. And as part of that, I just wanted to highlight the Nigerian Delicacy Day, which had over 120 attendees, along with the Filipino Heritage Day, which attracted 250 people. It's always wonderful to see the growing diversity in our community and to see people learning about new cultures and exploring the different people that live in our community, because it's changing every day. We held a child care working group to meet with MLAs to present visions for future child care using idealized design, and then also hosted a documentary screening about youth mental health called Connecting the Dots. Community Building Youth Futures has been busy, hosting red dress rock painting. They did a Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls and Two-Spirit Walk, and also was involved in Pride Month events. And they have been putting together a youth survey, which has been released to gather some information pertaining to future programming. In terms of community events, the Small Grant Program has completed phase 1, and we have dispersed $19,235. We've been working on a provincial funding proposal for emergency suites in the city, and that proposal was for $48,000. We've also applied for a grant for public washrooms at Simplot Park, and that grant application was for $50,000. The Lieutenant Governor had a visit, which was hosted by PCRC. And lots of different community projects are being supported all the time. Summer students, hiring and mentoring staff, and that kind of thing. There's been lots of affordable recreation and leisure going on in the community with Earth Day events, the Touch a Truck, Bike Week, Yoga in the Park, National Indigenous Peoples Day, the Miracle Grow Best Garden Selection, and which that community participation just started a month ago today, I think. So for community building and safety, we've got the Wowokia program, a medicine wheel program. The Wowokia intensive house case managers have housed 6 individuals and provided long-term support in this quarter, which is significant. And Reaching Home continues to support individuals in our community and facilitate activities such as drum making and Pride Month and food security initiatives. And finally, in terms of community development, our Indigenous Seniors Resource Coordinator has been busy helping seniors with some of the heavy lifting of summer and food insecurity. And we've been hosting monthly gatherings at the library for sharing circles. And yeah, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to pass them along to Mary, because I won't have the answers.
I do have a comment. I met the Lieutenant Governor last week for the first time, and she right away said that she had visited PCRC and how impressed she was with everything happened there. And so I always say, for somebody who schedule is as busy as that, to make an impression on her, for her to comment right away, it just means that we're doing something pretty great here in Portage la Prairie. So please pass that on too. Anyone else? Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Your Worship, and to Ms. Geisel, I thank you for your report. I'm so pleased that you have a photo of our mayor dancing at Filipino Day. It just shows our mayor loves to have fun, and it was a great day. We have proof now, as I've told people, that the mayor was dancing at Filipino Day, and it's right in there. You did a great job, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Okay, back to you, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. My next report is the Sudik Chicha Urban Indigenous Strategy Report. Is there anyone here to speak to that?
You.
This one's on me? All right. So the Urban Indigenous Strategy during this quarter continued their community engagement efforts In April, they hosted their first Earth Day event. In May, they had welcomed the new Indigenous Community Coordinator. And in June, actively participated in the Indigenous Day celebrations at Island Park, organized by the Portage Friendship Center. So just a brief overview. You all have the report in front of you there. Brief interview on Suda Kachicha.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Your Worship. And now I believe I will turn it over to Councillor Meyer for Public Art. Is that correct?
I can certainly speak to it. I'm on the committee. There hasn't been a ton of stuff that from the last report that I remember in the first quarter. But in addition to where it was at, there activities that were completed this quarter is the installation is in progress in regards to the public art piece that's going to be installed at Simplot Public Park, or Simplot Central Park. And that will actually take place relatively soon. They're still working on some engineering designs and some piling underneath. And we are talking about unveiling during the National Truth and Reconciliation Day in September to complement the existing plan. So I know it's something I'm really looking forward to. And when you see this structure, I believe it's going to be one of the most, how do you describe it? One of the most largest structures that you're going to see in Portage in order for a public artwork. So it's going to be really neat. So look forward to seeing it.
I did see I think an advertising today that I think they're looking at with the feast on September 21st is what I saw. Yeah, just today I just saw. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. And now I will turn it over to Councillor Porter for the Heritage Committee report.
All right. This is the second quarter report. The activities that begun this quarter was Emma McIver from the Fort Lorraine and Lorraine Daniels from the National Museum, Residential School Museum, continue to work on the Indigenous Science Project. Work continues on the second edition of the Portage la Prairie photographs for the fundraiser for the Hospital Foundation, and we're expecting it to be published sometimes in 2025 when the hospital opens. Goals for the next quarter is hope to complete the Indigenous Science Project, for which we received a grant, finalize the project on the Lundy Fountain at the Island Park, and this will include signage, discussion, and we will be holding further discussions on future projects at our next meeting. That's my report.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. And is there anyone here from the Portage Parks Committee to speak to the next report?
You.
No? It's me. Okay, so the Portage Parks Committee had planned a grand opening for Rotary Skate Park this past Saturday, August 10th, which did take place. The sodding and seating around the skate park is also complete. So things that have begun this quarter is continued fundraising for Simplot Central Park, continue planning towards the development of the park, and planning for sponsor signage throughout the park as well. The Parks Committee and the city acquired soil to reshape the Co-op Winter Park Snow Hill and plan to raise funds for signage, landscaping, lighting, amenities around the skate park and McCain Interactive Fountain.
Thank you. Okay, that ends community services.
Yes, should we jump right into something new?
Jump right into public safety.
Okay.
Councillor Doyle.
Is there anyone here to speak to the bylaw? That's me. Okay.
Brad.
Oh, Brad? Okay. Thank you, Chief Bailey.
So we'll start off with the auto chalk vehicle. We're starting to get it running a little bit better this quarter. If you look down into the first chart, so in the first quarter, our auto chalk revenue is down, but our parking ticket revenue is up, which are the handwritten tickets. Since then, we've been working with our partners, Auto Chalk and the other players in there to get the vehicle working better. So in the second quarter here, we've seen our Auto Chalk Revenue's gone up and our handwritten tickets have gone down because the vehicle is working as it should. We continue to work with them to auto chalk to fix problems that we've been experiencing, and we're starting to make some headway with it. So our bylaw officers as well have been collaborating a lot more with our CSO officers as the CSO program has developed. We're working towards having them, work together, utilize each other for, important things and to keep this city running smoothly. And then finally, with the weather that we've been having, grass has been hard to keep a handle on. As you can see, the number of second quarter grass complaints is by far the highest we have, as well as unsightly property continue to be our two most common complaints that we get. So bylaw has been overrun with grass complaints and getting contractors in to take care of that stuff. And then animal control. So I'd just like to point out, animals loose on the street, again, in the second quarter is the largest complaint. Like to remind people to, when you put your animals out in the summertime, people like to leave them out during the day. Make sure your fences are secured because the dogs are getting out on the streets. Animal control then gets the complaints and picks up the animals. We have seen our dog population in the pound go up, but hopefully we've been able to get them back to return to the owner. So that concludes my report.
I just have a quick question, and maybe you won't have the answer, but I'm curious about one of the deferred incidents, Portage la Prairie, Indiana. And if you don't know what that means, if you could just...
I'm not exactly sure, but I'm assuming they got a complaint that made its way to them from obviously Portage la Prairie, Indiana. So not quite sure. I know on the emergency services side, we quite often get strange reports that when dispatchers are typing things into GIS systems or coordinates, sometimes they post to odd places, and that would be my assumption. That's what it is.
I didn't know there was a Portage la Prairie, Indiana till tonight, if there is, so that's
Our
good.
sister city.
Oh, yeah, thank you. That's Maui, in case we're gonna visit there. Just kidding. Councillor Doyle?
Thank you, Chief Bailey. I appreciate that. And last but not least, for the second quarter RCMP report, I will call up to the podium Staff Sergeant Semaniak, please.
No, it's on.
Good evening, Mayor Knox and members of council. Again, Staff Sergeant Zane Semenuk, Central Plains Area Commander for Portage la Prairie RCMP. Come closer. And with me tonight is Sergeant Darcy Turco, Municipal Operations NCO at the Portage la Prairie Detachment. This evening I'll provide you with an overview of the RCMP first quarter report, just to make things difficult, with stats from April 1st to June 30th. Annual performance plan in the first quarter. We continued forward with the same priorities as in 23-24. This year focuses more on teamwork and communications within the detachment. Our local initiatives have been assigned to members of the Central Plains area. This promotes members to lead with accountability. We look forward to tailoring the annual performance plan as we move forward to shape it to best fit the community within the Central Plains. Under our employee engagement and wellness, a total of 11 internal meetings were held with our staff. This initiative is to strengthen awareness, promote communication and transparency with all staff at the Portage la Prairie Detachment and within the Central Plains area. Under modernization, stewardship, and service delivery, a total of 117 communications, be it meetings, events, and communications, with our external partners and community groups took place within the Central Plains. During the first quarter, we attended 8 community-related meetings. Under reconciliation with Indigenous communities, we attended and visited 3 events in the local area during the quarter. Under road, off-road, and water safety, we issued 547 violation tickets on Central Plains roadways, and we participated in 5 MPI-funded road initiatives. Under crime reduction, we conducted 40 compliance checks on individuals with court enforceable conditions, and we were granted 7 search warrants during the quarter. As with crime stats, we saw a decreased number of municipal criminal code total calls for service during the quarter, having 2,465 calls for service compared to last year at this same time, reporting having 2,609 calls for service. Persons crimes were up from 166 in the last quarter to 234. Property crimes were also up from 180 to 231. All areas reported upon, with the exception of motor vehicle collisions, were higher than previous quarter. Overall, all statistics were similar to the first quarter numbers in comparison with the first quarter to last year. Just to breach tough on our human resources at the detachment. Our detachment remains with a 27 full-time equivalent municipal police officer positions. For this quarter, we had 22 working. We had 2 members on special leave and 3 hard vacancies. And just to touch a little bit on the reconciliation that Mr. Pito talked on earlier, I reached out to our operational strategy branch and confirmed it was to do with the FTE numbers. We had forecasted 24 for the year, and we actually came in at 21.34, which is why the substantial reconciliation was there. We look forward to working together with our community, the City of Portage la Prairie administration, and all members of Town Council to strengthen our community and enhance community safety. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that concludes my report.
Perfect. I just have a quick question. Any movement on the hard vacancies?
Yes, we have 3 cadets coming, 2 in September. One actually belongs to Treehorn, but we'll be training that member out of Portage la Prairie, and we'll be having another 2 members come in November, one being a cadet and another one from up north.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Your Worship and Staff Sergeant Semiak. Thank you for attending today. I think this is the first time I've had a chance to maybe talk to you on the RCMP. How are you finding the community safety officer program going? Like, I know there's a lot of coordination with bylaw and community safety and yourself in your office, but how do you see it from your perspective right now, how things are going?
I see it really good. The visitability component of it is huge. It's nice we see them at our office, help them with a little bit of training and communication. Very friendly folks, and I've only heard positive attributes from the community about the program. So we look forward to its success and working with the city to keep it moving forward.
Good to hear. Mr. Pito?
Just for information for council, it is our intention to incorporate CSO quarterly reports along with our CMP and bylaws, so council can stay abreast of what's occurring on the CSO program and how it's developing.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. We have no old business, so we'll adjourn council at 9:27 p.m. and move right into committee. Call committee order at 9:28. Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Finance, Legislative, and Property Committee has no report for committee this evening.
Thank you. City Planning and Economic Development Committee, Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Work. Hey, there we go. Sorry about that, Council. Thank you, Your Worship. The City Planning and Economic Development Committee has nothing to report, but I do want to call on my colleague, Councillor Massey, who wants to bring something up in this area.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Just an update that falls under Councillor Meyer's portfolio. The mayor and city manager and I met with Chamber of Commerce, our monthly meeting. We had a lot of good discussions on various issues around immigration. They're very, plugged in and happy with the way the communication on Saskatchewan Avenue goes. But for me, I think the really important thing that came out of the meeting is the positive message we got from the chamber about our reconciliation and public apology at Dakota Plains. It was nice to see the business community supporting that initiative that we did, and it meant a lot to me personally, and I hope it meant that the mayor and the city manager, we got that from the chamber. So as I continue to say, the work with the chamber is very important, and it's great to see the progress on a number of issues that they are bringing forward to us, and we see a lot of that in our strategic plan, what's happening, and they are speaking up in favor of a lot of the issues on our strategic plan, which is great to see. So just for your information.
And that would be it, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Community Services Committee, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Once again, bear with me. I'm filling in here for my colleague, but next report that we have is from Ms. Lorna Knight. Come on down. You're the next one at the podium.
As you're coming to the podium, I'll just say thank you very much for the use of your space for our temporary council meetings. We're getting our money's worth tonight.
You sure are, in more ways than one. Your Worship, honorable councillors, and esteemed fellow citizens and community members. My name is Lorna Knight, and I am the Executive Director here at Prairie Fusion Arts and Entertainment. I am joined tonight by our chairperson, sitting way in the back. He might come up and speak in a moment. So I've only been here in this position in a year, but I think it's really important for us to make sure that we have open communication with council and with our public and our stakeholders, so everyone is very well aware of not only what we do here, but what challenges we face and how we are meeting those challenges and transitioning into new and exciting endeavors. Thanks. Perfect. I'm going to go through this as quick and painless as I possibly can. So I've just outlined some of the challenges that we have here at Prairie Fusion. As with many other nonprofit organizations, we all have different stressors, and one of ours is definitely a reduced federal funding. We receive CAPFA, which is Canada Arts Presentation Fund, and this year our amount that we regularly receive has been reduced. These funds are utilized mainly in our theater for any costs that are down there. They help us with monies not only for operational and staffing costs, but as well as costs that are associated with bringing in performances. With uncertain funding models, as this amount seems to change year to year, it does present an additional challenge in terms of us being able to allocate what that looks like. And so that's something that, as we go forward, becomes a challenge that we are willing to face. We have had a lot of decreased attendance for events and performances. Even though we are post-COVID, we still are seeing a decline in attendance numbers at a number of our different events and performances. The revenue from our signature events go towards reducing our ticket prices and bringing in more performers, and also in covering our operational costs. As performers' rates increase, it does make it very difficult for us to maintain low ticket costs, especially when we have low attendance as well. Of course, increased operational cost. Any organization can speak to this, and we are no different. We obviously operate this building, and that includes paying for all of the regular things that we have to as part of having the building itself, and those costs are increasing over time. Staffing, we have a small but mighty staff. We are more or less organizing within this building about 4 sort of small businesses, if you'd like to take a look at it that way. We have, under our roof, we offer a full complement of visual and performing art classes, as well as the theater performance and the rentals. We have our galleries, and we have the gift shop, and we do all of that with only 3 full-time staff. So staffing is always definitely an issue here, especially as we want to be present for the public, but with a lot of evening and weekend events, it does make it very hard, and we do get stretched pretty thin throughout the week because there's only so many hours that we all can be here. Although today has been a very long day. The availability of grants declined. Again, something that everyone struggles with. Grants are starting to become a lot more specific, and in some cases they don't apply to us. We've applied for a number of grants, and oftentimes we hear that we are declined, not based on anything other than the fact that the money has run out. So our applications had merit, and should there have been money in the fund, we absolutely would have received it. But the reality is that there's more hands asking and there's less money that's flowing. Community perception. We definitely were an organization that amalgamated almost right before COVID. And as a result, with everything being shut down, we didn't really truly get a good opportunity to brand ourselves as Prairie Fusion. And having two separate organizations become one organization is a huge shift, definitely with community perception. A lot of folks are aligned with what was one organization or another, and often people say, oh, it's the Gillespie, or oh, it's whatever it may be, because they have that personal connection to that. And it definitely has been a challenge to sort of really wrap the public's perception around the fact that we are now all housed under one roof, and that all of these activities are happening in this building. I hear on a regular basis that people will walk in and be absolutely shocked that there's a free gallery in this space, and they have most likely lived in Portage for most of their lives. So we definitely really are working at sort of not just rebranding ourselves, but just sort of re-educating the public about what we have here, that we do have a free gallery and that you can come in anytime we're open, and we do have a gift shop that sells local artists' work, and we also do performances and we do classes. It's a lot for people to understand because it's a lot of things in one building, but it's definitely the community perception that sometimes can be a bit of a challenge for us, but we are working towards that, changing that just a little bit. And of course, the cost of living has increased. And as we know, as cost of living increases, some of the first things that you drop off your budget when you're a cash-strapped family would be your entertainment. And so we are definitely feeling that at the end of the day, because there isn't a lot of dollars to go around, and entertainment is sometimes that one extra cost that's difficult. So we're transitioning. Here we go. We've got great plans here. So we're transitioning, doing a lot of different things. So one of the things that we're trying to work forward to is some new programming. So this year alone, we've introduced over 5 new programs, including things like Funky Kids, upcycling, sewing, and STEAM Kids programs, which works on science and technology and in a fun and innovative way. So we hope that the introduction of these new programs will help fill gaps in our community programming and also offer families some variety and some enrichment opportunities that aren't offered someplace else. New events is another way that we're transitioning into meeting these new challenges. Our community has spoken out about how they want some different activities to being offered and some different events. We had a Taylor Swift event that was unbelievably well attended, and so who knew having a dance party was the place to be. So we are definitely noticing what it is that our community is looking for and what folks are coming out and attending, and we're trying to have more events that are similar to that to increase community participation, as well as trying to get everyone to sort of look at us as a community art center. So this is the place to be, but we are very much here for the community. We have our season pass. This is the first time we've had a season pass since the 2019-2020 season, which was abruptly cut short for COVID, and they weren't able to do all of the shows part of that. But we have brought it back this year, so we're very excited that once again performers are willing to sign on in advance, that we're able to actually put something like this together, and we hope that it's really well enjoyed by Portage. Our hope is that we can have a lot of people that want to become part of our season ticket holder family. The Community Art Center idea was something that we've talked about for a while. Yes, we are the art center, but we are the community art center, and we do really think that we are a hub of the community. And we really want to make sure that we're showing that not only through our programming, but also through our events, and then also through the types of offerings that we have during the season pass, including bringing in performers that are here for families. Our gift shop relocation and rejuvenation. Well, this is a fun one. So at this very moment, we are switching our gift shop and our office space. So our gift shop has been very generously, we have a new sponsor. So Rona is the sponsor of our gift shop. We are moving the gift shop and the offices. It allows our offices to be a little bit more front and center here in the building. So we're hoping we'll be able to address our customers better and just be able to have a more welcoming opening atmosphere here, while keeping the gift shop very, artist centric, and make sure that we still keep an artist focus, especially in terms of making sure that we have a lot of local artists and regional artists that are showcased. We still think that's really important, and in Portage la Prairie we have some amazing artists, and we are so very lucky to have them in this area, so it's really important for us to keep that as something that's a very core part of what we do. And of course, last but certainly not least, our washroom renovation. At this moment, we're almost done. We are getting close to the end of the washroom renovations. They look fantastic. We are very excited with the upgrade. And this facility badly needed to be updated after all these years. The idea of being able to have the individual gender-neutral stalled washrooms is really important to us. Not only does it need the upgrade down there in terms of the aging facilities that we had, but also these individual stalled washrooms really are going to make sure that we tap into the needs of each one of our renters as well as the events that we have here. So when we have an event like 150 Women Who Care, we have all the washrooms available for all the women. And likewise, if we have another different event, it allows us, say a family event or something like that, it allows us to be able to have the options so that people have washrooms that they're able to use that accommodate their very individual needs. And even further still, when we have things like the Pride events, it allows us to make sure that we are staying really accessible and very relevant to the needs of the folks that are using our building. So thank you so much for this opportunity to come and speak with you and catch you up very quickly on some of the things we're doing. I know that it feels like a lot. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what our challenges are, because we are going into new years with new challenges as different things happen. And I think it's really important to stay on top of that and be informed of what it is that we're doing here and what we're trying to do. We've always found that council has been extremely supportive of everything that we have done here, all of our events, and we think that it's really important to keep you informed so that as you support us going forward, you have the knowledge of what it is that we're doing here and what we're trying to accomplish. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Doyle?
Thank you, Your Worship. Ms. Knight, can you just elaborate on the decreased attendance for events? Like, do you know why that's happening? Is it just the way it is right now, or is it quality of the performers, or can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I would not say that it was quality of performers. We have had some magnificent performers that have come here and we have still not sold out. And I would not say it's ticket prices, because the same ticket for those very performers less than an hour away were over double what we were charging. So I can't say that it is, to me, I don't feel like it's ticket prices, and I don't feel like it's the performer. I feel like we are at a different time where for $12 you can have Netflix and watch whatever you want at home. So the availability of lower rate entertainment is very accessible. And if you have a family that is on a budget, and we know how much more food costs, for instance, it is hard to allocate those extra dollars to entertainment. And so I think that's something that we struggle with. I don't think that's the case all around. I do think that some of it is coming out of COVID and people definitely having some different interests and maybe being a little happier to be more homebound than out and about. But I'm really hoping that the momentum of the season pass and some of the really amazing performers and events that we're going to have are going to push people to really want to be out and see what these events are and experience them in person. So I hope everyone has a serious case of FOMO and we see everyone at everything for this next year. That would be really great. And I think once we get some people engaged and maybe folks that have never been here before, then I think that that might start to kind of pick up the interest. We have enough people within Portage la Prairie to sell out our events on the regular. And for the most part, there's no reason why we can't. I just think that sometimes getting that initial knowledge out there and just really promoting the fantastic individuals that we have here for performances is really going to be key when it comes to increasing our attendance.
For sure. I always enjoy myself every time I'm in the building, so I'm definitely going to help spread the word.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And I think I agree with you on that, and I also think that after the pandemic, and especially this spring, that events in our community came back with a vengeance. And so it was a lot to choose from, but I agree, people have been homebound. It's just going to take us a little bit of get them out and
that's right.
Go. Yeah, that's right. Councillor Porter, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you're so
yeah.
You're so energetic. I don't know how this can't be. Like we're bound to be winners here. So I know that, but You guys offer an awful lot. It is something that we always have to keep reminding ourselves that this is here, and I don't know, maybe a little bit more promoting ourselves out here to come out to this. You know, like I often forget that, you know, that you guys are here, and I feel really bad about it, but thanks for the reminder, and you guys actually do a great job, and I remember sitting around that table having that discussion as a group, what could we do differently, and so yeah, there was a lot of really good ideas out there, so I mean, thank you so much.
Just one more on that. I have a little chuckle story. Is Lorna and I chuckled on it. Is there was a concert here one night, and somebody had posted on a Facebook site and said, "I have 2 tickets for sale for," I can't remember who it was, Gord Bamford or something like that, right? And then I just watched this like splurge of people underneath where, "I'll take them, no, I'll take them, I'll take them." Well, finally I'm like, you can actually all go. Here's the link, right? But it was a different frenzy, and people didn't realize that there was tickets for it. So we gotta somehow convince
Definitely.
people.
And you know, we're definitely one of those things that we have recognized, and I mean, we're still a fairly young organization as an amalgamated unit.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we're still learning about how to promote ourselves. And like I said, you know, a lot of the community perception sometimes holds us back because people are like, "Oh, Prairie Fusion, I don't know what that is. Gillespie, oh, I'm there." So we really, you know, that's definitely something we're definitely aware of as staff, and it's something that we're trying to recognize and move that forward to make sure that we are sort of tapping into all the different groups and making sure people do know all the wonderful things that are here, because we are very lucky to have a facility of this kind. And I cannot tell you how many people have stopped in and just been like, "I can't believe that you have this here in Portage. Like, this is such a gem," and we are very lucky.
Yeah. Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Ms. Knight. Follow up to Councillor Porter's. I attended that consultation along with Councillor Nichols and Councillor Porter. It was disappointing. I know the facilitator was late, coming out of Winnipeg. You know, the perimeter highway, I guess, got in the way. But I'm curious there's going to be a report coming out of that, and I would hope that you present something to council on that. I mean, we spent some time there talking, and I found it very interesting, like the other 2 councillors did, but I want to see something come out of that. So I hope that when you get that report, it's either shared with us, I assume publicly as well in our community. I'm not sure of the process, but I'm sure your board will be dealing with that. But I just want to make sure that we don't lose that afternoon we spent.
Absolutely, and that is just part of the beginning part of sort of doing a greater project. And so as we get that information, you absolutely will. We're also doing a needs assessment, so that will also be something that we'll be able to bring forward once that's completed as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. And now I will ask Ms. Angie Schindel to come to the podium to give the Portage Regional Recreation Authority annual report.
Cheerleaders back here.
I'm short. I just want to thank Council for having me today. So I started with the PRA as a general manager. My name is Angie Schindel, as Councillor Doyle mentioned, back in 2019, right before the pandemic hit. So it's been exciting to come out of that on this side of it. And Portage Regional Recreation Authority has been extremely busy since. As some other organizations are struggling for people to come out, we are not. We have had tournaments after tournaments. 2023 was a very busy year. I'll kind of just highlight, I won't go in detail through the whole report as you guys have all received it, but I'll highlight some of the events and some of the programming things that we're very proud of. So programming aspect, our adult swim lessons, we rejuvenated that last year, and they've gone over very well. We're quite excited that we're finding older ages wanting to get comfortable in the pool, be comfortable, taking their grandkids, taking their kids out. And so that was one of the programs that once we started offering it again, it took a little bit for people to catch on, and now we're seeing 15 to 20 adults registering and coming out. So it's a very great program. We worked with Long Plains Health to offer swimming lessons to their members, where the Long Plains Health itself bussed the kids in to have private lessons, essentially, which is another great partnership. The more people that are learning how to swim is a lifelong lesson, so we're very happy about that. As well as the school lessons, we had woodworks of schools coming out for swimming lessons this year. So our aquatics essentially was very, very busy trying to accommodate all the schools and all the travel and all the kids, as well as the struggles of having instructors during the day, which we were very thankfully able to fill. And then our Sticks and Pucks program, public skating, we offer those services kind of in the winter during downtimes during the ice, as well as our Aquafit in the aquatics. Again, it remains extremely popular, where we're getting 35 to 40 individuals out per class. Whether or not they're chit-chatting amongst themselves or participating is another thing, but it's getting people moving and getting them in the water. And then new for 2023, we did the breakfast / skate with Santa, which is something completely different for us. We've always done kind of a skate with Santa. We added with the Portage Terriers and Champs Corner to offer that program, and it exceeded our expectations. We had multiple families out enjoying, kids getting to sit on Santa's knee. We had a beautiful backdrop that Val and Zafira put together, and overall it was a very fun day to see the kids run around, and of course skating with the Terriers, which is always a bonus. Some of the partnerships that we've formed in 2023 or have fostered are Sandy Bay First Nations and Long Plains First Nations. Both approached us of wanting to, well, first it actually started with Sandy Bay First Nations approached us wanting to do something for their members. So we worked with them in incorporating kind of a little bit of a reduced rate for them, where they prepay for their members to use our fitness center. And that has gone over extremely well. And then Long Plains kind of heard the success of it, and they approached us as well. So between the two, we're having roughly between kind of like 40 and 100 per week utilizing our fitness center. And we just have a process that that they have to show their treaty card, they sign in, and we've heard great responses from both First Nations as well as the participants. And then we have also many other partnerships with PCRC, Visions of Independence, Fairhome Colony. They've been coming to Schindelman Aquatic Center since well before my time, and they teach their own lessons during their time and then have free swim. So their instructors attend our instructors courses, attend our kind of training, and then are able to deliver that service to their colony. And then I'm going to jump to Rotary Public Park. It's been thriving, and last year thrived as well. We saw many events, so we had multiple provincial tournaments, many leagues play throughout that facility, as well as the annual Potato Festival is held there. 2023, we saw two major events, the Centennial Cup as well as the 55 plus games. Both events went extremely well as a facility aspect and as our office delivering. The Centennial Cup was over 11 days, and it saw 8 leagues across the board come to our community. It brought many tourists. We had many of compliments to our facility, compliments to the community, people just excited to be here. And then we saw the 55 plus games in June, and that brought over 900 participants alone. throughout the 3 days. It was exciting, and I don't know if you had a chance to come by or check it out, but we definitely had a lot of excitement and a lot of exciting activities and events. They're not games, and they're not participants are very particular is what but Stride Place was host to the pickleball aspect of it, as well as bocce ball and the horseshoe, swimming, and it was a great 3 days, and we had lots of fun. We also had an evening event at MNP, and with meal and entertainment, and then a variety night the night before that showcased some of our local entertainment. And with that, we also partnered with the Legion Yellow Quill School, Portage Golf Course, Southport Bowl, the Legion, our Yellow Quill, Herman Pryor, and Rotary Republic Park is where all the events were. And then I would like council to realize that these events would not be possible without our amazing staff that we have. The PRA employs 65 plus people in its peak months of summer. However, during these events, we are very thankful that the staff that we have with us are they are gung-ho when I say we're hosting, and they are excited to showcase our facility, as well as just hearing the positive feedback from people that have either never been to our facility, or ones that come back on, they can't believe that it's 10 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old, and that it's all because of them and the hard work that they do to keep that facility looking as pristine as it is, and take pride in being there. And so I really thank them for basically just buying in and fully enjoying and working hard to ensure that the facility is able to host these events. And then basically to wrap it up, it wasn't in my report, but just one of the things I'd like council to know is that in October of this year, we are hosting a strategic planning meeting for the PRA board, which I think is extremely important. And I'm very much looking forward to working with the board and our management staff on kind of working with what our gaps are, what our successes are, what our goals need to be. And I think it'll just only enhance what Portage Regional Recreation Authority is capable and is doing. Is there any questions?
Any questions, Councillor Massey?
Thank you, Your Worship, and Ms. Schindel, thanks for coming out. This area touches our community, and I get more questions about recreation, and you do it well, because I've seen recreation in many municipalities not done well. So congratulate you have a regional approach. It's great. You mentioned 60, I was going to ask how many staff, but I have one question and then a comment. The question is, you've told us your successes. What's your biggest challenge this past year?
So our biggest challenge has, there's a couple of them. I'll keep it light, but basically number one is just ensuring that we're reaching the community as a whole, and that we're not narrowing on the higher demographics, and that we're working and making sure that we're offering programming that everybody has accessibility for. And we work with places like Child and Family Services and their Chance to Play, Chance to Camp, those kind of programs to help ensure that our lessons are full and that people that are requiring need them. The other is definitely, as the facility ages, being able to look after repairs and making sure that we're continuing to stay on that. And our like I said, our facility staff and management have done a phenomenal job of ensuring that their checks and balances are being done, and the maintenance, but that always cost of everything is definitely impacting.
Just a comment, and again, thank you for coming out. I'd like to see more of you in the future. You touch so many people, and you're one of our biggest partners with the RM. You mentioned your strategic plan, great. We've got great board members, I'm sure, from the city. You'd agree with that, I'm sure.
I do.
But I think I would like to see you when we are doing our budget and coming to us to talk about what the results of the strat plan were and what kind of dollars you're looking for to meet that strat plan. I think that's important for us as a council, and I look forward to hearing that.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to you, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Ms. Schindel. All right, almost done here, folks. Next up, we have the strategy for green space investment. So this is just for information. It'll be coming to council at the next meeting. So basically, further to the quality of life, developing great neighborhoods initiative of the city's strategic plan. Administration has drafted the following investment in parks and green space strategy. So it's in front of you there for your information. Do I read this all?
You don't have to.
Oh, okay. But our 2024 budget currently plans to match up to $75,000 for the Garrett Creek Trail project. It just highlights a few of the things we have coming up in our next meeting here.
Does administration want to comment on more?
Through your worship to Councillor Doyle, it's just an outline for planned investment over the next couple of years. One thing that we do as a city really well is green space, but we have a lot of different, we have a lot of infrastructure across the city. There's a map including all of our playgrounds and green spaces I would encourage council to look at. It also ranks them in terms of their condition. Essentially, which playgrounds need the most attention in terms of investment. Administration has reviewed our playgrounds, plan for investment over the next 3 years, and will be asking council to consider adopting this strategy. Should council adopt this, we will plan this into our future budgets. So we're communicating. We often get questions: when are you going to deal with this structure? When are you going to update this park? This will give administration clear direction on how much we're going to invest and in what order we're going to invest to address some of those community needs. So I think it's a very proactive strategy of council, and I look forward to the questions coming forward at the next council meeting.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Waterworks Committee. Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Your Worship. Waterworks Committee has nothing further for committee at this time unless somebody has something for me for my wonderful Waterworks department. I know it's been a long evening, and Carly's provided some excellent reports there. And so as for that, I have nothing more for committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Transportation Committee. Councillor Porter.
Transportation Committee has nothing to report, Your Worship. This is, I guess, where I wanted to talk about this Saskatchewan Avenue that we're just a couple weeks away from paving, as well as I guess they'll be working a little bit longer on the Crescent Lake road, and yeah, so we're looking forward to wrapping up pretty soon on the Saskatchewan Avenue paving project there. Thank you.
Perfect. Councillor Porter, I just have a question for administration. I think we all saw that the Association of Manitoba Municipalities did some media on the conditions of our roads in Manitoba. We had that throughout the winter, some major flex in our weather, like freeze thaw, and especially in the spring, that just really wreaked havoc on our road. And we in Portage, I'm sure my colleagues can tell you, it's what we often hear from citizens about the condition and concerns. And so I'm just wondering if administration has given it any thought for future with the roads.
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Porter and the transportation portfolio. So we're definitely, I think in recent memory, we have never seen weather wreak such havoc on our roads, and that's something we hear from a lot of communities in southern Manitoba. The freeze-thaw cycle, for those that understand, when you have water melt and then get into cracks and freeze, that expands, and that's why you'll start seeing potholes and cracks come. Also, you have your groundwater, which we have very high groundwater in this area. Frost boils heave and throw and cause chaos to your roads. So This is probably the most significant year for road damage we've seen, and we have a standard investment strategy on repairing roads. Now the damage we're seeing to roads has exceeded what we can do in a year. So the good news, that's the bad news. The good news is I think we have an opportunity now that we have some additional revenue now that we have finished our Causeway project, have started our Saskatchewan Avenue project. We'll soon finish that, where we can mobilize some of the gas tax revenue, community building fund revenue. It's the intention of administration to come forward with an advanced investment strategy, so above our normal maintenance and investment strategy over the next 3 years to council on how we can invest larger amounts over the next 3 years to get caught up and exceed our current maintenance strategy. So it's the intention of administration to start bringing that forward in the coming months as we build our budget, but not only for the 2025 year, thinking how we will go into 2025, 2026, and 2027 in terms of enhanced investment and improving the roads at a faster rate.
Perfect, thank you.